Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
All right, here we go. First down, a goal to go for the 8-yard line. Buffalo's down by 3. Snap taken by Shador. Handoff. No, he keeps it this time to the end zone. Big quarterback goes lumbering into the end zone. Touchdown. Touchdown, Colorado.
Left side of yours. Jaden Blue offset to the right side of Quinn. Now Blue shifts in motion out of the backfield. Shoulder fake by Ewers. Throws downfield. Wide open. Matthew Golden. Touchdown, Texas.
Love gets a handoff running left side. Bounces off Jalen Tuimelo on. He fumbles the football. That's going to be picked up by Jack Sawyer and run into the end zone for a touchdown. Ohio State defensive end Jack Sawyer picked up the loose pigskin.
Second and goal for Alma from the North Texas 1-yard line. Daly hit by Rendina, keeps it, runs left, falls in the end zone for the touchdown. Bryson Daly's second score of the game. Touchdown number 21 for Daly on this 2024 season. And Army opens up a 2-score lead over North Texas.
Lawton back in the ball game. Here's the snap back. And Curtis looks, fires it deep down the field. He's got Elijah Surratt. Touchdown! 36 yards on the throw by Rourke on the money. And Elijah Surratt makes a terrific play as well. Indiana on top now, 13-3.
Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. DB will be joining me here shortly, but until then, it's me and my guy, Shane Schillerberg. What's up, Shane?
No, you're exactly right.
How was your weekend, bud?
That was good. How was yours?
Oh, pretty good. It's kind of funny on bye weeks. I feel like I get to consume way more other sports. And I end up watching about the same amount of games, but I get to watch them live instead of having to catch up on them after the Nebraska game. So that's always kind of fun. And
it's got to be nice because you can follow along on Twitter and be with all the reaction as it happens.
Because I'm not trying to tweet along to Nebraska games or follow along to Nebraska stuff. So you get to kind of experience it more real time. That's a good point, Shane, where you don't really feel like you're just kind of watching in isolation or just watching game film. So that's always fun. I strangely enjoy a bye week, although obviously it'll be nice to have Nebraska back in action this weekend against USC. But no, even without Nebraska, it was a pretty interesting weekend, especially in college football. We'll get to all of that coming up. We've got our friend Sam McKewon at 8 o'clock. From the Omaha World-Herald, and then we will talk to Bill Bender from the Sporting News. He's a national college football writer. So we'll get to all the implications, but man, it's starting to get pretty messy in some of the scenarios for the college football playoff. Obviously, you've got two top 4 teams losing over the weekend in Miami and Georgia. And there's a couple places that get pretty messy. The ACC is one of them because you may end up your top 3 teams in SMU, Clemson, and Miami don't play each other the rest of the way out. You've got Louisville kind of hanging around just behind that group as well. But you very well might end up with not the best team from the ACC in the college football playoff, which is not going to be great, but that's for sure. It looks like a one-bid league as you come down the stretch here. The Big 12 gets really interesting as well, as you've got it would appear you've got BYU and Colorado on a collision course for the Big 12 championship game, and both of those teams control their own destiny. Either team that wins out there is going to be in the college football playoff, which I got to say, I'm pretty conflicted on the Colorado thing, because if Nebraska beats a team that's in the college football playoff or beats a team that ends up in the college football playoff, that's obviously a great sign for Nebraska. But I still hate Colorado, and especially this version of Colorado. So, yeah, that's a little tricky for me. Weighing those two options is not great in my mind. We're still trying to battle through that one, but hopefully, my long-loved BYU Cougars can just take care of business there and make that a non-factor. But BYU survives the Holy War, which there was a bunch of games this weekend, NFL included, where I'm just not totally sure how teams won or lost, depending how you look at it, the games. That BYU-Utah game was certainly one of them, but maybe the worst one of the weekend was Oklahoma and Missouri, where you've got two scoop and scores in the last 4 minutes of the game. I think I might have the timestamp wrong on that, but
whoa.
I don't. It was a completely bonkers finish to that game. And now you're looking at an Oklahoma team that's at 5-5. And you look at Brent Venables, and I just don't know where Oklahoma goes from here. I was having this conversation over the weekend about these coordinators that take these high-profile head coaching jobs. And it's just so hit and miss which guys end up working out, because more and more, the head coaching job and the coordinator jobs require totally different skill sets. And we see this a lot with guys, kind of these hotshot guys that end up getting elevated or getting hired to new positions and then really struggling. The bigger these power conference jobs get, the less, and Coach Rule's talked about this, the less they have to do with actually coaching football. And so you see these guys get elevated. I mean, we saw one here with Scott Frost. As for whatever other faults Scott Frost has or had or whatever, right? Not a bad offensive mind. Good offensive mind. Was successful as an offensive coordinator. Was successful at a smaller program. The skill set to be successful as an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator, and the skill set to be successful as a group of five or a smaller job coach, and the skill set to be successful as a power conference coach are just getting further and further and further apart. And we're seeing it, I think, with Brent Venables right now at Oklahoma. There's countless examples of this. But I call it the Michael Scott problem, right? Michael Scott, for as bumbling as a regional manager as he was a very good salesman. That's how he got the job. But the skill set between being a super good salesman and being a good manager of salesmen is totally different. And I mentioned we heard Coach Rule talk about it. He literally said, hey, now that I'm a head coach, I don't really get to coach that much football anymore. But when I did, I was pretty good at it. Right? That's a thing that he said over the offseason. And I just wonder, I don't know where else you're going to look for candidates to be head coaches, but I just wonder if there's not some sort of, I think that's why people go out and try and hire a Deion Sanders, which appears to be working out at Colorado, or a Trent Dilfer, which is certainly not working out at UAB, is I think people are starting to look around and go, hey, this coordinator thing is a lot more hit and miss than we want it to be. And you kind of start looking for other solutions in places that are maybe a little bit more unusual. DB, how are you this morning?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Oh, just going through kind of a weird college football weekend right now.
Yeah, it was wild.
I still can't get over the Missouri-Oklahoma game.
I'm mad because
that thing was so dumb.
Well, I went back through our the stinky lines and ones you were just like, oh man, I'm on
Is it free money or is it a stinky line?
Man, you should have been broke.
Yep. You betcha. Because I was on Iowa State.
Yep. So KU was good.
Yep.
OU should have been good.
Yep.
That North Texas one.
That was a little dicey.
It was pretty dicey.
A little dicey.
And there was one more I was pretty animate about. I couldn't believe Oklahoma. And that's going to fly under the radar because it's bad. It's bad.
It's a bad team, yeah.
But, I mean, it was just one of those.
It was one of those weekends.
Yeah, I was talking to
in the NFL, too, honestly.
So, I kind of understand the NFL because it is like this is what Tagley Blue. This is what
they wanted. This is what the league wanted,
right?
Yeah.
Roselle, they wanted parity,
mm-hmm.
and outside of a couple of horrific teams,
yeah.
A
couple of which got wins this weekend.
So I laughed to myself. Had a sermon on one like. I was laughing to myself yesterday morning watching the Giants.
Yeah.
I was like, I wonder what I'm going to give him the Dable Sirianni pick again. It's a bad football.
It is a bad football team.
But like full disclosure, I still like in that division. Like if I had to rank it, I probably would want to be. I'd want to be a Commander. Then I'd want to be an Eagle. Then I'd want to be a Giant. Then I'd
still over Cowboys.
Yeah. Dallas is in much worse shape than the Giants.
So I agree Dallas is in very bad shape. I have a hard time putting him worse than the Giants.
They're in, what team would you want to take over first?
I mean, if we're including everything, probably the Giants because I don't want to deal with Jerry Jones.
I don't even think it's close.
I still think the Cowboys have a slightly better roster.
They're strapped.
Yeah, they are.
No, there's
the salary cap situation is terrible.
Yeah, give me no. I'm for sure because at least with the Giants, man, I got Dexter Lawrence, I got Burns, I got Thibodeau,
I got no QB.
That's fine. Neither does Dallas.
You're not taking Dak over whatever you can find in New York.
I'm not taking Dak for $60 million when he's not healthy.
Fair.
Like no, because what they see. They paid Dak, and they want Dak to play like a guy that doesn't need help. Dak's not that dude.
No, there's like two of them. There's like two of those dudes.
Dak
is not one of them.
Dak needs a ground game. Shoot, even as great as Mahomes is, he needs a run game.
He does.
So it's like
now he's closer to being able to do it without help than Dak is. Obviously.
He also doesn't have. I mean, you could debate the receiving core currently between Dallas and the Chiefs. Probably slight nod to the Chiefs. Well, they still have Kelsey and
if you include if you're including
Ferguson's a stud and CD. But I mean, but anyway, that being said, it's like I mean, Casey's offensive line is clearly better.
100%.
At least the interior. But I don't know. I go back to college. It's just going to be one of those. I thought, because I'm talking to, well, that's not matter. I'm having these conversations with some coaches around a couple about the landscape of college football as the games are going on. And I was convinced almost through the nighttime, and I think I still am, there are a couple outliers, that the teams that aren't as worried about, the whole pay for play and have still kind of tried to grow a little more. I think culture will win this year over talent.
Okay, so give me a couple of the teams that you like their culture over the talent.
Well, the easy one, this isn't like rocket science, but because they're bad, but just take a Clemson over an FSU.
Well, yeah, 100%.
But so I like the way that even though Oregon has some high-priced NIL guys, I like the way Oregon plays better than I like the way Ohio State plays.
Sure.
I like the way Indiana plays better than I like the way Indiana plays almost better than I like the way anyone plays. But I'm not sure I don't love their talent.
I'll say there's a gap there talent-wise, though.
But let's be honest. So if Kirk Rourke was playing pickup or 7-on-7 or some sporting event, you watch his interviews. Would you pick Rourke to do anything?
No.
Me neither.
No.
Except help me with my homework. And that dude.
If I got a chemistry problem, I might.
And he's sensational.
Yeah, so
he's got the weird I'm like, man.
I'm very interested to see because there's going to be a certain point, I think.
Like, what were the redeeming qualities with watching LSU?
They
got a lot of good players.
They've always had a lot of good players. That's always been the issue with LSU.
They're a little decimated defensively, but they look like
doo-doo.
They're just all over the place.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, I would sit here right now and tell you that FSU has a more talented roster than Indiana.
Hey,
and I don't think that's a hot take.
One other thing. Before I let my mood get ruined, all you cats that hit you know who you are. Man, they know who they are. They tried to hit me up. Like I was just defending. What people better understand is I'd rather be right than well-liked. So I'm gonna do my best to just be as authentic.
To get it right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I told you UCLA's good.
Yeah.
I told you watch the last 3 games. Watch Penn State. I told you about what they told me about how they felt about Oregon. I watched that game.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
that team's pretty good.
They're physical.
Yeah.
And they know what they want to do.
Mm-hmm. Which goes a long way.
It's huge.
Just that by itself goes a long way.
It's a big deal. Like they play man. They play hard. I was like, oh man, UCLA's pretty and Nebraska got okay. Listen, man, sometimes like that in games like that where UCLA, and I was specific too.
Mm-hmm.
UCLA was better in their man concepts, and they were winning against man in some of these route concepts than they had all year.
Yeah.
Nebraska figured it out in the second half, and they kind of slowed them down again, especially
it
offensively. But it took a little bit, which let me know. Like, the first thing I thought of was, oh, man, they got markers and dry erase boards too. Those guys are getting better, and their guys are starting to make plays.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't dropping those contested catches and stuff like that.
They're going up making plays.
They were winning. It was more than just Sturdivant.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He barely was even a factor against Nebraska. And he was their dude.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, that team, it's not fun playing them.
No.
Like, their schedule is incredible.
Yeah. We talked about this before the game, right? How much better than their record were they? That was the $1 million
Deshaun Foster
question.
isn't going to get any votes for Coach of the Year, but he should.
Yeah. I mean,
he should.
Kurt Cignetti's going to sweep that bad boy. But.
Oh, my gosh. Is he something else? Hey, what's our record again? She said it. Wait, what'd you say? 10-0. He looked down at her. It's pretty good, huh? I said, oh, my God, he's out of control. He went from, and I feel so bad hyping him up after Big Ten Media Days. I had one coach down in Lincoln, not the head guy, but two of they were like mad at me.
Yeah.
Told me to get off his NUTSs. I said, we don't even say that anymore. How old are you guys, man? We stopped saying that in high school.
A while ago.
I'm getting my nuts.
Exactly. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I just gravitated towards his confidence.
Here's the question that I'm going to end up having with Indiana, because I think at some point this is true.
Sustainable.
No, not that.
Doesn't matter. They're winning.
Not that listen, for this year, it doesn't matter if it's sustainable or not.
Yeah.
My question for this year is, at some point, and I assume this is true, I believe this is true based on who they've brought in on their roster. At some point, there's going to be a talent gap I don't think they can overcome.
They execute at such a high level.
They do. And so that's why I don't know where that point is, because I would have thought it would have happened by now.
I mean, I don't really think Michigan was what I would call a blueprint. Because so you talk about an anomaly kind of weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, what is 373-1? What is that record?
It's pretty low.
373-1.
You're going to be somewhere.
And the one win is a team and or franchise that does not exist anymore.
You're going to be somewhere south of 0.3.
But do you know what that stat?
What's it in reference to?
Yes.
I do not.
We talked about improbable wins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what happens when you throw 5 interceptions, trailing by 16.
With our guy Jay Goff.
373-1.
Yeah,
was the record until last night. I mean, it's just like winning is. I'm telling you, be happy, move the heck on, try to get better for the next week. Yeah, that's gonna always be my thing. Winning is incredibly hard.
As we've seen around here, we were talking about Iowa a minute ago. My 7.5 is in danger.
Your bet with me is
gone.
Is over.
Yeah, it's donezo.
Yeah.
But my 7.5 it's in danger.
So the thing that I'm the most happy about with that.
What's that?
Is instead of having to maximize to feed the family with $20, I feel like I have a little more wiggle room with 40. You're like,
I'm just waiting for you. I'm just waiting for you to cash in.
Let me tell you the difference between me and Ravi.
I'm waiting for you to cash in at all.
I'm tickled over $40. I'm like, oh shoot, I can, Micah and Zoe. Ravi's looking at me with this like, man, this dude here That would be my appetizer, bro. When I'm out, that would be my glass of wine when I'm out with my wife over at V-Mertz, and you're over here haggling over $40. That's how you looked at
No,
me. It's exactly how you
what
look
look
at
I
me.
was giving you?
Like
The look I was giving you was, are you ever going to cash in no matter what
when
the
I get
dollar?
hungry. But I
That
can
was
see
the
how
look.
you. I was the look.
No, the look was, it doesn't matter what the number
you're
is.
like, I could drink a cab for $40.
Really not a big red guy, but no, the look
Put a
literally.
quarter of a tank in your boat.
It's a sailboat. It's not a speedboat.
Wow.
No, the look I was giving you was, no matter what dollar amount this gets to, this guy's probably never cashing in.
Yeah. I might get hungry. I look for sales.
You've had that Creighton bet out there for a year.
I've looked for sales. Well, I had to wait and see if
it's been 10 months.
I had to wait and see if I was going to get to 9. And I thought about it too. Like I paced.
Yeah.
I paced in here, didn't I? I was like, I don't know, man. I don't want to get with these $20.
You know what's funny?
And you're looking at me like, bro, it's $20.
You know what's funny is the thing that I was worried about for Iowa, the offense, has actually worked.
Yeah.
Because that, like, what I thought would happen is, hey, the offense will be just enough better, but the defense has regressed so badly. It's killing me out here. It's killing me.
Shane, have him call at 7:30. He'll be first up.
Yeah.
That way we'll give him more than 2 minutes.
Yeah, I don't want to cut Lance off. He gets mad when I cut him off after 2 minutes.
Well, he hates his coach. I think all Michigan people hate
Really?
their coach. Yeah.
Yeah. As much or more than the Florida fans hate Billy Napier.
Hey, so much for the vote of confidence.
Yeah.
Napier was like, shoot, I'm back? Oh, man, the heck with coaching.
We cool? We good?
They got.
What did I say? Well, I said immediately, I go, I'll vote of confidence. He's getting fired.
Yeah.
Like, that's the worst thing you could do. Like, what are people still doing that for?
I think Texas just scored again.
I think they are about to score again.
And they're not even getting great quarterback play. They're kind of they're a weird.
They are.
That's a weird team.
That roster is so good, though.
No, it's loaded.
I mean, and at some point, the quarterback play is going to probably bite them.
I keep telling myself that, but it only did against Georgia. And that was still only because, and I get it, QT Mac, he's going to call me up. And you couldn't block Georgia. I get it. He doesn't love his quarterbacks getting vertical down the field. But, I mean, Georgia, pretty average looking offensively.
Yeah, especially against like or similar talent.
Yeah.
Like you get into, and I mean, I would still say I know Ole Miss had a crazy transfer portal year, but I would still say Georgia's talent-wise in another level than Ole Miss. I still think Texas talent-wise is another level.
At what point when you're watching that did you think, oh, man, Georgia may be in trouble? I feel like they should be up and they were down.
Yeah. I felt that way about Georgia.
It was 13-7, and I'm like, shouldn't Georgia be winning?
Yeah, I feel like they should have been winning at that point. I'm having a lot of trouble because remember a few weeks ago when we go, hey, the interceptions are concerning for Carson Beck, but I like that he's able to bounce back and still play a little bit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're getting to a tipping point there with the interceptions.
Carson Beck has that look.
Which one?
The look of a guy that sometimes isn't quite sure what's going on.
Yeah, a little dazed and confused look.
Nah, I'm not going to go as far as to say he needs to change the sheets because he has been able to bounce back.
Yeah.
But he is showing some bedwetting tendencies.
I think we're getting to a point with him where the confidence is shaken.
I'm not going to give him that adjective. He just is he has a few of the characteristics.
He does. I have a hard time with that one because he's done it too many times in big situation. Like, that's hard.
Yeah.
Maybe he's just a little football bipolar. I don't know. We'll be back. More Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back.
Happy coach and quarterback with Jenny Dell.
Hey, Coach.
take a look around for a moment. Is this what you envisioned when you took this job?
Oh, yeah. I knew that winning could make, but this is over the top. No doubt about it. And you know what's great about it is we have an off day tomorrow because we're open this week. But look, not pretty at all. Getty, defense, awesome job. Bending, not breaking. The special teams play again, huge in that game, and found a way. So not much style points. We had some guys knocked out. I give Michigan credit. They played physical. They played the whole game. And what are we, 10-0?
You are 10-0 for the first time in program history, Coach.
Not bad.
50,000 fans have been.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Oh, yeah. I knew that winning could make, but this is over the top. No doubt about it. And you know what's great about it is we have an off day tomorrow because we're open this week. But look, not pretty at all. Getty, defense, awesome job. Bending, not breaking. The special teams play again, huge in that game, and found a way. So not much style points. We had some guys knocked out. I give Michigan credit. They played physical. They played the whole game. And what are we, 10-0?
You are 10-0 for the first time in program history, Coach.
Not bad.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590,
Oh.
ESPN Radio, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DBM Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage, and Kurt Signetti just asked once again on TV what his record is.
Yeah.
You have to be careful with that because he's not like a real young guy, so people might think you're starting to lose it a little bit.
Oh, man. That
dude's on one.
Okay, so
listen, enjoy your moment. Enjoy it.
Of the guys that are ripping off wins that make you a little queasy, still Dion 1, Signetti 2?
Yes, because I don't think Signetti treats his players badly.
What are we, 10-0?
Isn't that wild?
Who does that? I don't love it, especially after I don't mind that type of stuff. I think he gets a little condescending with other programs, which I don't love. I don't mind him taking his victory laps, though. I'm all about victory laps. I'm cool with that.
You are 10-0 for the first time in program history.
I don't
he lent her an ear.
Yeah, he's like, excuse me, could you mind? Yeah, I mind it a little bit more than I did before. I felt he was a little condescending to other programs, but that's fine. But Dion, I don't like the way he treats people. That's a different thing. That's a different level of I just don't want any part of that.
Man. Of the improbables.
Oh, and Indiana's
listen. No.
Sorry, go ahead.
There were several.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I'll even wet your whistle by tickling it by multiple sports.
Okay.
I'll give you Fordham, Seton Hall, since me, you, and Matty D. That's my new text buddy, man.
I told you, Matt's great.
Love that dude.
I've been telling you to ride with Matt for years.
Man said the traffic is hectic. Bucks are in town. Just vintage. I was giving him some grace.
Yeah.
I'll give you Fordham, Seton Hall.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you the Broncos and the Chefs.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you Detroit and the Texans.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you Oklahoma and Missouri in football.
Oof.
I'm gonna give you BYU and Utah in football. The most improbable.
Yeah.
Oh, and now I get it. If you're like one of those analytics guys, if you were McClintock, you'd be like, well, it has to be Detroit winning because teams in similar situations were 373 and 1.
So here's the problem with it being Detroit, though. I get the numbers, but I look at it and I go, I like that head coach. I like that roster.
Were you vibing with me with Cynthia when I said, well, you think people will embody that CEO?
So I was talking about that before you got here, about the coordinators being head coaches versus guys that kind of have a different
NFL to
skill
college
or
or
college to college mostly.
Okay.
Because I was talking about Venables, right?
Oh, yeah.
And there's just so many guys now that you look at and you go, hey, I get that guy's a great coordinator. Being a head coach is an entirely different skill set.
See, I didn't think Ben wanted a head job.
Maybe.
Cynthia gave me a little pushback on that. She didn't throw me under the bus. She just didn't acknowledge
She's
it.
like, well, I think they're both going to be gone next year with the coordinators. See, the NFL is weird because I actually think in the NFL.
Actually?
Well, actually. I actually think in the NFL, as a head coach, you do get to coach more football than you do as a college head coach. I think it's more about football than being a college head coach is. I think being a college head coach now is truly a CEO role, especially in a power program. Some of the group of 5 schools, you can still coach a decent amount of football. The NFL is more to do with football than colleges as a head coach.
Campbell
at this
seems
point,
to be an overseer.
which is great. I think
because they have his temperament.
I think that still works, right? I think that still works at the NFL level. But I think you can be more about football in the NFL as a head coach. And if you take that skill set to college, you can really struggle because there's just so many other things you have to do in college, whether it's the recruiting, whether it's the booster. You don't have to go raise money in the NFL, right? You don't have it's a whole other thing. You're not really recruiting in the NFL. You got little free agency periods, but your GM's handling most of that for you. Football head coaching jobs are way more about football than college head coaching jobs are.
Were you thinking no way Chiefs blocked that?
I mean, not no way, but
my guy Sawyer, wrestler, Amber's son.
Yeah, my guy I was playing football with on the beach.
This dude was having a fit, and she's filming him. He's like, knock it off! Right before they kicked the field goal. Then she sent another one after they kicked the field goal. this dude had tears of joy. That's how diehard of a Chiefs fan he is.
So to answer your question, though, I
Oklahoma?
think I have to go Oklahoma.
That was incredible. I was getting ready to take a victory lap on my deck.
Yeah.
It's freezing, but I was just enjoying the
because Oklahoma was the fave.
Cushion was a little wet, and I didn't give a what. I sat out there and minded my own business. And I'm like, wow, they're really gonna blow this thing.
Yeah.
Nah, Missouri was like, you drink whiskey. Because, I've been kind of waiting for them to crumble.
Yeah, because you think they're
I've been saying it all year, right?
It's like not as good as.
How are they going to win this game?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot, they're going to win this game.
I don't know if it's just because.
I'd left Utah for dead. Or BYU.
Yeah. I watched that whole thing because I like BYU.
Oh, I know.
So I'm sitting there and I'm like, and it's getting pretty late. Wife's asleep already. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, okay, well, we're just going to ride this thing out because Kalani Sitake guy. Like we're just figuring it out. They looked terrible. That whole game, they looked terrible.
Dude, how about their AD?
I just
he think he liked those calls late. See, that's a travesty. And I'm not going to say, look, that's my guy's crew too.
Mm-hmm.
That's Mar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's I think and I don't know if I'm just doing that because I'm not sure I've ever seen 2 scooping scores in the same game, much less in 3.5 minutes. But that one sticks out. The Oklahoma Missouri one sticks out to me as like, what in the actual hell just happened?
What do you got against Fordham?
Because it's Seton Hall, man. So me and Maddie and Alex and Jacob in our group chat, we just go, oh, somebody's going hauling again every time they do something like that. So Seton Hall will never surprise me when that happens.
All right.
Let's get to our guy, Michigan Lance, who we tried to give more time and ends up with almost the exact same amount of time.
Michigan Lance, what's up, buddy?
What's up, Michigan?
Hey, what's going on, boys? Happy Veterans Day to everybody out there.
Yeah. Lot of deals, man. Take advantage of restaurants being kind to you. Take somebody out.
Hey, man, I heard you talking about Ravi don't understand the struggle with a family and these prices out here for food. Hey,
I'm trying to maximize my $40.
I don't, man.
Hey,
Yeah. People think I make good money. I'm like, no, I just don't have kids.
Right. Hey, for real. Like, hey, dog, it is tough out here, man, every day. And then if you got kids in sports or any extracurricular activity, it can be band, it can be karate, whatever that is, where you're not just going home after work and spending time with your family, and you trying to find food from here to there, man.
Yep.
Woo, tough sled.
Yep.
Tough sled.
Yep.
Hey, man, college football, timing is everything, right? Like, so we all want things sooner than later. But sometimes, all the time, God puts it in our hands at the right time. And this is the right time for a college football playoff, isn't it? Like, this is great.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Like,
because I did feel like it was rushed.
Oh, you did?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. I wasn't 12 expansion guy. Nope.
I got you. Me neither. I was more like, let's go 8. Let's work up to that. But, man, with the NIL changed everything because it's giving it a little bit more of a level playing field across the country, man. Nobody's just a clear-cut favorite. Now, is Oregon the favorite? Yes.
I mean,
but are they, huh?
Kind of. For some reason, I don't. Yeah. I get your
I'm
point.
with you, DB.
Go ahead. Do your thing.
Listen, I'm not enamored like, oh, man, Oregon's just this all-time great team that's going to run the table. Like, this, it's really up for – like, it's really like the NFL. That's what this playoff is about to be. That's what this season is. Like, you're seeing teams who were garbage at the beginning, like, doing well, Kansas and UCLA. Then you got teams that, Florida State, who was great last year, terrible. Like, man, this is some exciting stuff going on here.
How do you feel?
Great stuff.
What do you want to happen in Michigan, and how soon?
In real time, it's tough, man, because I don't like the way things are going. I got to see what the landscape looks like for coaches out there.
Gotcha.
Right? It's easy to get rid of somebody, but can you replace them?
Yeah.
And right now, is there somebody right now today worth replacing or that's available to replace? I don't think so. So I got to wait till after. See, man, it's a lot of Florida State. For some reason, Florida bringing back their guy. Oklahoma's in trouble, man. Oklahoma can go down a Nebraska road the way Nebraska's been the last 20 some odd years. Like, Oklahoma can go down that road next, man.
Yep.
Like, they're not a Bama, a Texas, a Ohio State. Like, their money and stuff. Like, hey, man, it's not like that. So, gotta be careful down there.
Michigan Lance, I think Mike Norvell might be available any minute here. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up hour number one here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla, and DB asked an interesting question off air here, and so I'm going to bring it on air just in case our intrepid group of listeners has more insight on this than we do. You asked the question, has an interim coach ever been fired the same season he became an interim coach.
Yeah.
So let's just use Jeff Ulbrich as a random example, not the guy that we're exactly specifically talking about here. Although, who knows? Dennis Allen, the Saints might have something to say about it too.
Wow.
But you've got Jeff Ulbrich up in New York.
Hey, if you're Atlanta, how did you lose to them?
How does anybody lose to them?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the tree of
Yeah, great question.
That we were in. That's Coach Manning. Who, by the way, people loved his interview. He
was great.
He's fantastic.
Yeah, he was good to talk to.
Going back to that tree of trust with Cynthia when we went rapid fire.
Woo!
You trust the Jet? No.
Yeah, you barely got the question out.
Hey, do you want to think? No, don't trust the Jets. How about when I asked her who the best team in the Falcons? NFC? Does she trust the Falcons? Well, I mean, sure, it's bad division. They're just not as bad as everybody else, but they'll probably get beat by.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Ominous.
I almost used an analogy there that I
probably shouldn't.
Yeah, but there's not a lot of value of being the tallest person in a room full of short guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like being the smartest dumb guy.
Yeah. I was gonna say
okay.
I was gonna say the skinniest kid at fat camp. Like, there's not a ton of value there, right?
I heard that with the tall thing because I totally agree.
And I didn't mean to ask you the question, Shane, but you have had a lot of head coaches
you have the most experience with
fired in season.
Yeah.
If any team would have done it, it would be that team.
It feels like it, right? Like it feels like it would have been the Raiders if anybody would have fired it. I'm sure it's happened at some point.
Did you see his pelvic? He's got the fracture.
I did. Did you see what he tweeted?
What did he tweet?
He goes, "I can't believe that MF still made the layup."
So what's the prognosis on Chet?
About 2 months. Fractured pelvis.
Yeah, that changed their trajectory quite a bit.
It certainly does. I think they'll be okay. They may not end up being the 1 seed, but they'll be okay in terms of by the time playoffs roll around. But
yeah,
that's a good basketball team. They'll be all right. They're not going to be what they were, or what they are with him. But
if another adult called you childish,
depends on what I did. Sometimes I can act kind of childish.
I got
a little self-awareness.
I like Jaylen Brown because he's
selfish.
He's an intellectual trash talker.
Yeah.
And when he was talking to you, ask me the same question, Eric.
No.
I kind of like Giannis, but I don't kind of like Giannis.
You don't really like. Is he?
You asked me the same question last year.
So
here's Kurt Signetti.
He hasn't done anything to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's not like
you got no reason.
I got no reason, but it's just like
You just don't love him.
So this is
What are we, 10-0?
This that's gonna be your thing now, Shane. It's one of those things where I used to question, and far be it from me, I get it, how hard he played sometimes. Like, was he interested in winning?
I mean, he has won.
Yeah. So it's like,
But I could kind of see that because there's one of the things that I like about him could also be used against him.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I like about him is he seems to have like a perspective on the whole sports thing.
Yeah, where he minimizes
like the importance of
importance
it sometimes, right? Yeah. And you could convince me that means he doesn't care as much as some guys that, winning and losing is life and death for them. I think he's probably in a much healthier place mentally and emotionally.
Yeah, ask me the same question, Eric.
But I also think that you could make a point. Honestly, you could make the same point for Jokic. Jokic doesn't seem to care all that much.
God, did you watch that last night? That was sensational.
Like,
it's a wrong question.
You know what I mean, though? Like,
Kyrie was in his bag.
Yeah, that's a dude that I don't like.
Yeah. I know.
You know what it is? It's not even the fact that it's not even all the nonsense. You know what it is?
No.
It's the shot he hit against the Warriors. Hated him ever since. He game 7'd me, and I'm like, nope.
I think I actually have some audio from that.
Nope. I will cut you, Shane.
What do you got?
What are we, 10-0?
That's fine. You can keep playing that.
I had to get over. There's a little Freddie Freeman to that.
Yeah, sure.
There's a little Freddie Freeman. Freddie Freeman appears to be a much better ambassador.
Sure.
I'm not going to say person because I don't know either one.
No, I thought you were going to say player, and I was like, oh, Kyrie's pretty good.
A much better ambassador for their sport.
Yeah.
Like, seems to have a lot more likable traits, but
And I can ride with him. He's talking.
Plus, it seemed like him landing in Los Angeles. It wasn't his first. I think he wanted to be a Brave.
I think so too. At some point the money talks.
So then I was like, fine, stay there then. Don't come over.
I guess we'll just take this MVP. I guess.
No, I didn't say that.
How many MVPs are you gonna collect and be mad about it?
Whatever.
You got Shohei over there. You're like, man, he's fine.
Hey,
you got Mookie over there.
Is LeBron still on the ground from not being hit last night? I'm curious.
Lucky for you guys, AD not today.
AD still is. Got hit in the eyeball.
This dude laid down.
He's probably so sad that he doesn't get to hang out with his kid anymore.
Relax.
He's like,
hey,
oh, Bronny.
By the way, I'm going to leave you plenty of runway to be like, man, DB, great call on.
I mean, you're going to have to give me more than that.
How about Kyler Murray? Can we talk about I
never disagreed with you on Kyler Murray.
Well, I want to be affirmed.
Hey,
I'm a dude.
Hey, you did so good on Kyler Murray. I'm so proud of you.
Isn't that what we do? We either want love or affirmation as men. I mean, that's about it, right?
That thing wet.
I'm dead serious. Like there's two things that we want.
Yeah.
We either want affirmation or love.
DB.
Yeah.
I think you did a really good job.
I just want to hit you with this mug.
Predicting.
Would that be excess violence?
A little bit. That Kyler Murray.
Just the smugness. Is your middle name Smug and you just didn't tell me?
It's not. My middle name is not Smug.
How about when you're like, yeah, you're not going to guess it.
Let's just say it's
100% correct.
It's not from this continent. You may have predicted a lot of things like Kyler Murray being good again.
Yeah.
Would not have not have been able to guess my middle name. No, you were the only one I had heard say that.
Yeah.
I will give 100% credit there. Nobody else was talking about Kyler Murray to start.
And as a matter of fact, I believe your initial response had something to do with no new Call of Duty coming out.
Mine didn't.
Something. No. Yes.
I think somebody else made a snarky comment about Call of Duty.
Is that what it was?
I think so. I don't remember. Listen, I made fun when the initial thing came out with the contract and the video games. I gave a little bit of a hard time. I haven't been on the Call of Duty thing the way some people have. Like, I don't care that much. There's a lot of people that have hobbies or spend time doing stuff I think is silly or stupid that are still really good at their jobs.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, whatever. I mean, I got more of a problem. You ever seen like DK Metcalf talk about what he eats?
Oh yeah.
Like I got more.
The whole somehow that made my algorithm. I'm like, this dude is throwing. But the one thing I did like about DK.
What's that?
Do you know what his favorite kind of candy is?
Gummies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he's a gummies guy.
And those Skittle gummies are fire. By the way.
The dude doesn't eat until after 8.
Yeah, like 8
He
p.m.
said that's his real meal.
And he's worked out twice by that point.
Yeah.
And then he's had like 3 or 4 bags of candy.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to think out if he means bags or if he means like bags.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of ambiguity there. Mm-hmm. It's a little horrifying either way.
Yeah, good genetics.
Yeah, 100%.
How did you see that?
I've seen that clip like 3 times. Like it just pops up in my socials every once in a while. Because I don't think it's new. But like I have a bigger problem with guys like that than I do a guy like Kyler, who I don't believe for a second he's like Johnny Manziel, where he's logged 0 minutes on his iPad. Like I just don't believe that's the case.
Could you believe that?
Yes, 100%. For Johnny Manziel, I 100% believe that.
God, I would lose my mind.
You would choke the life out of him.
I get mad at our kid. Listen, I get mad at our guys when their huddle minutes are down.
Yeah.
I'm like, you guys know we can see that, right?
It's not like back in the day when we were in school and I'm like filling out my band practice sheet and I was like, yeah, I practiced for 2 hours this week.
Yeah.
There's no way to track that whatsoever.
Yeah, it's like, it's no coincidence. You think such and such and such and such is a good player? Look how much time he spends on huddle.
Makes a little bit of a difference.
It does.
Makes a lot of bit of a difference.
Shout out Reed McIntyre.
You guys have a lot of minutes on huddle this week with that getting that shutout?
Yeah. That was actually hard. Like, I know people are gonna eye roll, but like,
no, Papio's good.
That's a good.
Papio's good. They're well coached. That's a good offensive line.
Good offensive line.
You've got some weapons there.
Yeah.
Like that's a good squad.
I was more happy with our offensive line being able to
hold up.
Yeah, because they're deep.
Braylon threw a couple dimes.
Yeah.
Only one of them ended up as a touchdown, but threw a couple dimes.
Got a chance to be really good.
Yeah. That's good, real good ball placement.
How sweet was that pick from 71, Melee?
Dude, that was sick.
It's incredible.
Yeah, unbelievable.
So as a staff, we probably watched that thing like 6.
It happened right in front of me.
Times.
Like right in front of me.
So you know the beautiful thing about that? It was right in front of me too.
Yeah, because you were standing not too far down from me.
He tracked it in the air.
Yeah, you could see him do it.
He put his head. He deflects it, which was athletic.
Yeah.
Because he's got to be 270.
Yeah, at least.
So he bats it down, or bats it in the air. Then he tracked it with his eyes to make the diving catch. Yeah. And I could hear guys in their headsets were like, "Man, he didn't catch that." And I'm like,
no, he did.
Number one, he caught it, but who cares? Like, just give it to him. Like that thing was amazing.
It's like in the NBA when you dunk on somebody and they're trying to call you for the charge with like the arm. It's like, no, that was cool looking. You got to give it to him.
Our OCK or our running backs coach came in the morning. He goes, "Did you see that play?" But I said, "Yeah." Don't even say. I watched it 100 times.
Yeah. No, he 100% got that too. That was a great play. We'll be back with Sam McKewon coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Here is the sports editor for the Omaha World-Herald, Sam McKewon.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Sam McKewon.
We're gonna throw the ball, and you just stand back there and throw it where you want to go. And that kind of thing.
Sam McKewon.
Are you guys going? Sure.
Now, Sam McKewon.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are joined now by our friend Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, how are you this morning?
I'm really good. How are you?
Sam, coming off one of the greatest segments of all time last week, man. No pressure.
No pressure. We'll try. We'll try to shriek and scream.
I can't see him like the Hobbit.
Yep. Right. My wife was just calling me a hobbit this week too.
No.
She's like, "You're short." I'm like, "Yeah, I know."
I mean, listen, Sam, I've
that is
incredible. This is late, obviously, but like, did you see that clip of James Franklin arguing with the fans?
Oh yeah,
last week.
Yeah,
the guy that was dressed in all. I'm like, that guy's a troll. He's dressed in all green, with a green tracksuit and a cabbie hat. He's about 5'2". James Franklin screaming at him.
So you know what?
The guy just walks away, and I'm like, "What in the? That's the strangest fan confrontation I've ever seen."
I gotta ask you something.
And he looked like a hobbit.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Franklin has kind of had some classic little low-key meltdowns in the media.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, in just this year, right?
Yeah, he's pretty funny.
And
he's a different guy.
I want to get into this coaching personality in their team, though. This is on the heels of me talking about Campbell kind of being a CEO, but Detroit takes on his personality. I'm going to give you a couple of teams, and I want you to tell me how close you think they resemble the appearance of their coach's personality. And I'll start with Penn State.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think they kind of match their coach's personality. They have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, and they seem to, I think Franklin's organized, and I think he's intense, and they win all the games they're supposed to win. But they don't win the biggest games. They don't beat the best teams on the schedule. They haven't done that since Franklin's been there. They've only done it once when they beat Ohio State in 2016, and then they won the Big Ten title. It's the only time they've won the biggest games on their schedule.
Indiana.
Oh, yeah. I think that guy he's interesting. I think Indiana is playing really, really well, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. I can see that maybe some other schools kicked the tires on him, and they probably were like, yeah, we don't want to deal with this guy. You can just tell. He's probably not the easiest person to deal with. He seems a little aloof. He seems like he's a little rough around the edges, and he's perfect for Indiana. Like, I thought about it, Michigan could have hired this guy, and Michigan wouldn't have liked him. They would have thought he was too arrogant or too something. And you can just tell that his personal manner probably cost him a job along the way. But now it has him in an incredible position at Indiana. He's going to be there a while.
All right, two more. LSU.
So I listen to Brian Kelly's press conference. I do this a lot. I listen to the coach's
me
press conference.
Too.
Yeah. And he's just, I don't know.
They play like he talks.
Fraudsters.
Yeah. It's weird.
Yep.
Like they
I'll let you expound, Sam, but I think you may know where I'm going with this.
Yeah. Oh no, I mean I think there's some games they play really, really well, and some games they don't. And I think it always feels like he's an angry dad, kind of walking around and getting mad at everybody. And I think they're affected by that. And he's really smart. Like, Brian Kelly's a really smart guy. That's evident by the way that he talks and just all those things. So he's not like a meathead. He's not, he's really smart. And I just think the team is negatively affected by, his level of criticism and his level of irritation with them. I don't know that he's the easiest coach to work for. I don't know. I think there's a lot of things there.
Last one, and this is on the heels of his infamous I don't know answer to a couple of questions on his pod. Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, his teams play like they don't know how to finish games. And, Lincoln Riley's won a lot of games in his career, so he's not like he's not defined solely by this season at USC, but there seems to be an uncertainty with his happiness.
Yeah. So
and I think his team plays like it's a little uncertain.
This is interesting, Sam. So Friday, and I pride myself on like knowing data, like numbers. And I said something to Ravi off air. I'm like, I gave him the impression that Lincoln Riley has, by the way we treat him and the way we talk about him, I gave Ravi the impression that he's lost more games than he has. And I said, man, it feels like he's been bad as long as he's been good. This is off air, and Ravi he goes, no, I don't know about that. So he goes to Google. He's won a ton. Like,
yeah. It's like 92 and 28 or something.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And we talk about Lincoln, so I'm like, God, I was dead. I was dead wrong. But it seems, he's treated like he's much worse of a coach than the data would lead us to believe.
Well, he's playing in the Big 12 too. We got to be honest about that league, and I'm sure there's some part of Nebraska that laments having left it. Now, nobody's going to say that out loud because, of course, the Big Ten is a better fit financially and stability-wise. But Nebraska would have won a lot more games in the Big 12 over the last 8 years. They would have. I mean, Colorado was in the Pac-12 last year, and everybody told everybody how good the Pac-12 was, and it was. It was really good. And I think they went 4-8, and they leave that league and they go to the Big 12, and they lost by 3 to Kansas State, but they've run through everybody else, and they're probably going to finish 10-2. And I think Colorado's a better team than last year because their defense is better, but that tells you everything you need to know about the Big 12. Like Oklahoma went from the Big 12 to the SEC, and they can't move the football. They can't move the ball. And Texas has been fine, I guess. I mean, they've got a $30 million roster. They ought to be fine, but we don't know how Texas is going to end the season. They got to go play Texas A&M. We'll see how that goes. I don't know. So I think some of what Lincoln Riley did was in the Big 12, and then he goes to the Pac-12, and it was really good last year, and they weren't very good. And the Big 10 is brutal. USC has had the hardest schedule, perhaps in the nation, and it's really hard. It's hard to go win at Michigan and Minnesota. It's hard to beat Penn State on your home field when Penn State's really good. They should have beat Maryland, and I think that's the one game where you're like, that's the game that's an indictment. But it's really hard to do this stuff in an 18-team league where everybody has money. And Lincoln Riley, everybody kind of said, well, he's running away from the SEC. As it turns out, he joined the SEC. It's just called the Big Ten. And the teams in the Big Ten are really good. Nebraska has to contend with it too.
That might have been you. There weren't very many people in Indianapolis yet. It was in the morning. And I said, Lincoln Riley strikes me as the type of dude that has to win in this league to shake the SEC.
The running from the SEC narrative.
Remember that? Yeah. And I'm like, so I don't know if he can win enough for that, Sam. If we believe what we believed then, which was, I think we both felt like, well, yeah, kind of. Because he was super chippy at the podium before he even took the podium. And this was after I had asked you the question with just the two of us standing over there.
Yeah, he was very chippy. And I think he probably felt a little defensive, and now it's harder to say some of those things because of what they have and haven't accomplished this season. And again, it's going to be really challenging in this league. And I'm not trying to diminish anything that Indiana's done. I think, you have to credit them. They didn't have to play Penn State, Oregon, or Ohio State yet. They will. They're going to play Ohio State in 2 weeks, but they didn't have to play those teams. So they don't know. I mean, they're good and they're going to make the playoff, and that's great. But, they didn't have USC schedule. if they did, I don't think they would be 10-0. I think they'd probably be 7-3, and a great story, but not 10-0. So some of the thing that they're going to have to navigate and figure out as they go along is how these schedules play out, because there's some really unbalanced schedules out there. If you look at the way Michigan State ends its season, I think they end Illinois, Rutgers, Purdue. Illinois ends Michigan State, Rutgers, Northwestern. That's just Purdue, on the other hand, has in November Ohio State, Penn State, and Indiana. Like that's brutal. So they're going to have to figure out how to balance those things, I think, a little bit going forward. There's certainly some teams that have benefited from an easier schedule. And then you have USC and UCLA. Obviously, UCLA is a better team than its record, but they had to play the teams they had to play. Some of that was their choice. They didn't have to go play LSU. I don't know why they're doing that. And they probably won't do it going forward. But, you know, there's clearly a big logjam of teams after the top four. We don't exactly know which one of those teams is the best yet because the schedules have been imbalanced.
We're talking with Sam McKewon of the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, of guys that are at big-time jobs, who, and I'm going to give you 4, who would you like to give the longest leeway to? We'll start with the guy we're just talking about, Lincoln Riley. Let's go Brian Kelly at LSU, Brent Venables at Oklahoma, or Mike Norvell at Florida State.
Of those ones, who should get the most grace?
Yeah, like kind of what order would you give in? Like, hey, I'm definitely riding with this guy. To if they got rid of him tomorrow, I wouldn't be shocked.
Norvell the most
grace,
followed,
right?
Yeah,
I agree.
Followed by Riley, Kelly, and Venables. So I would give Venables the least. And that's not because he's
got no track record out as a head coach.
Yeah, exactly. That's not going to work. And everybody can see it. Defensive coordinators, they struggle to find quarterbacks. They played 94 quarterbacks this year. This happens all the time with defensive coaches. And you can go back and look at it. It happens all the time. They struggle to handle the offensive stuff. They go back and forth with quarterbacks. Almost all defensive coordinators, sooner or later, they're like, well, we got to go with the mobile quarterback because I don't like defending the run, so I got to go to a guy that can run. And then they put the guy in the run, and he can't throw. And this is exactly what happened at Oklahoma. Then that guy's not any good, and they got to put the other guy back in. So that happens all the time. So Venables, I think, is the one that's – I mean, they could let him go after this year, and I don't think anybody down there would be too upset. You know, I mean, Brian Kelly, this is his last go-around as a head coach, and you just have to decide how long you want to see it. Now, he's a good recruiter, so they've got some good players coming in, and they're young. So maybe you give him another year. And then Riley, I don't know. Who else is USC going to go get? Who wants to live out there? Who wants to do the travel schedule that
Wait. You don't mean that, do you? Who else could they go get?
Or who else wants to live in L.A.? Because I think a lot of people.
James Franklin might go. I don't know. You'd have to pay him a lot of money.
I don't know, man.
Who really wants to travel out there? Who really wants to live out there? Who really wants to travel, you know, over across 4 time zones to play a football game? Who really wants to coach in a stadium that's going to be half full unless you're winning all the time?
Well, I'll tell you in 2 years when I think when the economy resets. How about that?
Well, to see, like I'm like it's going to be a hard pull for all those teams out there except Oregon. Oregon, I think, has got it going. But all the other teams, it's not going to be easy for them to live in this world.
Sam,
and again,
you said something I think a lot of people think. A lot of people agree with you. How was Oregon the anointed one of the new 4 with the least amount of history?
Because they have money and they have commitment.
Isn't that weird, though? I mean, and it wasn't just because of the way that they were built this year. I think for the last couple of years, Oregon was like the darling.
Yes.
And it's
Eugene. They fill their stadium. They have good fan support. At USC, you have horrible fan support with high expectations, which is the worst combination you can have.
Well, you wait till the Trailblazers get it going, Sam.
Like if you have a situation at USC where you have a team that's expected to win 10 or 11 games and then they don't, and then, the fans don't show up, I just think it's a hard job. Maybe James Franklin will be ready to go there. I don't know why he would, other than he wants to go live in Los Angeles. I'm not trying to knock Los Angeles. I think it's one of the great cities in the world, especially Hollywood, all that stuff. I'll enjoy going out there. I don't know that I would want to live there. It's a giant city. You're probably commuting to work 30 minutes every day. Your stadium's half full. Who wants to play in front of a half full stadium? And that's what you're doing there, because, when they play NFL games at SoFi, whether it's the Chargers or the Rams, the other fan base has more fans there. It's just the city doesn't care about sports, except for the Lakers, maybe the Clippers, and the Dodgers. They don't really care about football in California anymore. So why coach there?
Yeah. I'm listening. I'm okay. I sat up on the front of my seat for that part. Okay,
I still think more people want to live in Los Angeles than Eugene.
I want to get back to coaching personality traits and what teams need from their head coach. If Nebraska is going to take a couple of character traits from Coach Rule this weekend, what will those be to give them the best chance at success?
I think just a play in and play out intensity and intensity. And
so his intensity.
It's consistency and intensity.
Because he's definitely that.
So, and I don't mean that, I don't think he flies off the handle the way Bo used to. Bo was intense, but it was supernova intense, and then he would sort of blow it out, and then he would be morose Bo. So it would come out and be rah, and then it would be, it would be this other thing.
I've said
and
this.
I don't think rules like that.
I've said this before because they do have some similarities, but I mean this because knowing both guys pretty well, Coach Rule better than Bo, but it's close. Bo was hypersensitive and hyper paranoid. Coach Rule may be paranoid with some things to some degree, but he's not very sensitive, right? It doesn't manifest itself the same way.
It's hard to be both and survive.
It's almost impossible because you'll become victim to your environment. Coach Rule is a little bit better at not being as reactionary from a sensitivity standpoint. I think that's the fundamental difference in their levels of competitiveness, because I think
that's fair.
They both were uber competitive. Coach Rule even texts with intensity. It's
yeah,
you know what I mean?
I think they need his consistency of intensity.
Yeah.
I think, he doesn't.
I like
he doesn't,
that.
He doesn't go overboard, I think, often, but he's also never blasé. I think he's got a lot of intentionality to what he does. And then, the larger question of how things go going forward, I do think that the way that they want to play offense as of last, 2 weeks ago, in order to play that way, you really, really need to have a full intentionality on every play, and there has to be a great execution, and you also have to have the players for it. You have to have
he said it would take extreme focus.
Yeah, I think the offense is wonderful when it has all the pieces. I really, and this is something, I would be curious to pick your brain on. The way that some of the running plays hit, whether it's the backs and whether they're doing the right thing, or where the plays hit, or is there a crease? Are they hitting the crease? What exactly is going on sometimes? I think that's a confusing portion for me. I think there's just times when I watch them and I think, the run game just seems a little harder than it should. There just doesn't ever seem to be a big hole. And I'm not saying that there usually is, but every so often there should be a giant hole that just is wow, look at that. They hit it right. The team blitzed into the wrong spot, and there it is. There's a 5-yard hole. And that happened all the time during the Mike Riley era, all the time. And it just doesn't feel like it happens with these guys. They don't run into a play. They don't run into a 50-yard run because somebody misfit. It always feels like everything is 7 or 4 or 3. You know, they hit a big run against Purdue with Ja'Cory Barney, but it took a lot of action and reverse stuff. Just doesn't feel like the run game hits the way that it should. I don't know why, but it just doesn't.
Sam, as we go into the first week, and I forgot that we hadn't actually talked to you since the Dana Holgorsen news came down, because it happened right after we had you last Monday. What tangible things do you expect to see, whether it's this week or just throughout the rest of the season, since the Dana Holgorsen hiring?
I think you can play with better attention to detail. I think you can play with more intentionality, a little bit better pace. I think your receivers can get better at some of those things, and he may be able to come in and make an assessment of everybody on board and say, this is what you guys can do. I think there might be something that you can do with the deep passing game, some concepts, some things that you can work out. I mean, he's done a lot of those things. Maybe half rolls, get Dylan a little bit on the move, and then get him set up with a nice platform, so that he can throw the deep ball with intention, with pace and power. There's been some times when Dylan's taking a shotgun snap and he's just sort of jogged 2 or 3 steps backward, and he just doesn't have urgency with his footwork, and it just doesn't seem like he knows exactly what's going to happen in that moment. And sometimes you just need to set up a play that says, this is what this play is going to be. We're going to half roll you, and there's going to be 3 men on the route, and the one guy that you want to go is here. I don't know. It's hard to say exactly what he's going to accomplish, and some of what he's able to accomplish will be dependent on how they play at USC. They need success there. Even if they don't win the game, if they go out there and they score 24, 27 points, they could very well lose the game 31-27. USC has players on offense, and I don't really care who their quarterback is. They got players. But if they go out there and they score 24, 27 points, then everybody can kind of look around and go, okay, we're a little bit better. We lost the game, but we're back, and now we can go play Wisconsin and Iowa feeling a little better about ourselves. We'll just have to see what happens. Some of it is contingent on success. You have to see success with changes, and so we'll see if it happens.
I think that 9.5 has to be. I think a lot of that has to do with like the narratives, like what surrounds each program. SC at home coming off a bye, Nebraska coming off a bye, and historically has not fared well. And I don't even know if I'd call this high profile. It's a helmet game, but it's flying under the national radar in terms of importance. I don't know. I just think USC gets the benefit of the doubt because they're USC.
Yeah, their metrics are better than Nebraska's. So they have the win over LSU. I think that's probably a slightly better win than the win over Colorado. It does, but Nebraska's win over Colorado does too.
Nebraska's win over Colorado is better than SC's win over LSU.
I don't know. I think they're about equal. Yeah, I do. I think Colorado had a very hard challenge that night playing in Memorial State, and LSU didn't have, USC didn't have to do that. They had to play in a neutral site, so I don't know. But they're probably, let's just say they're about equal.
I could be biased. I don't know.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I think USC's metrics are a little different. I mean, they really did take Penn State to the wire. They played a hell of a game. Probably should have won the game, didn't. And then they played really well at Michigan, lost the game. Played pretty well at Minnesota. So, I mean, there's, they beat Wisconsin easily. So, there's some metric things in there that probably inform that. But at this moment, I think Nebraska can win that game. They're going to have to play well. I think USC, again, they got players. And as I always like to say, wide receivers like to play every game if it means they're going to have a good game. And it's almost like you're using their self-interest for your team. I've never seen a wide receiver that said, I'm not going to go out today and catch 200 yards worth of passes because we're not very good. Yeah. Don't go catch passes. So USC has guys that'll go out and do that. And if Nebraska's not careful, the new quarterback will come out and he'll throw the ball to those guys, and those guys will run into the end zone, and they won't blink. They'll be like, let's just go score 40 today. So Nebraska has to be really on point defensively, because if these guys get an idea that they can run over Nebraska, they will.
That's Sam McKewon from Omaha World-Herald. Sam, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Sam.
Hey, take care.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
2nd and 10, drop back for Beck. Throws high, intercepted. Mello Dotson has got it at the 25, the 20, the 15, the 10, the 5. Touchdown, Kansas. Touchdown, Mello Dotson. Lightning strikes twice. Back-to-back years with a pick six at the hands of Iowa State.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DBM Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. Got to remind you, get out to unionomaha.com because they are playing for a championship on Sunday. They won over the weekend. They will play for the USL League One title on Sunday, November 17th, right here in Omaha, Nebraska. We're Papillion. I don't know technically where
Shano?
Water Park is.
Shano?
Yeah, what's up?
Can you get the Prez this week?
I think he's coming on tomorrow.
Okay.
I think. We'll get it worked out. But
tomorrow?
We'll talk to him this week about
I just saw him a couple weeks ago.
About their playing for a title this week. And you can get tickets 2 p.m.
Marty could actually co-host too.
Marty's great. He's a fun guy.
He's entertaining, and he knows
a lot
about sports.
Yeah, loves sports.
And he loves Star Wars, so you could have a Star Wars. Not so much.
No.
He could co-host a show like a podcast with Shane just about Star Wars.
No, we're not doing that.
I mean, not like
there's
on
enough
the
of
same
you
space.
guys. You don't need to.
What do you mean, you guys?
You don't have to.
We talk about you
grow
people.
Grow the audience.
Who you talk about you people?
Star Wars nerd.
Oh, okay.
That's fine.
So I was talking about this thing about coordinators in the open, right?
By the way, I'm more of a hobbit.
I'm a hobbit, and I can't see.
That was one of the great. I have no idea why he went off, but that was funny.
Yeah, it was that kind of.
I think he was talking about OCs that can't see or something like that.
Oh, it was Mario Verduzco. It was Verduzco.
Well, go ahead, Shane. Let that rip.
Whatever, but it reminded me of 3 years ago when they had Frost, and then they had Lubick, and then they had Verduzco, and then they got tired of Verduzco being in the box. So they put him on the field, and he's short, and he couldn't see. I'm a hobbit, and I can't see. It feels like there's a lot of chefs in the kitchen, and Dylan seems like he's one of the chefs. So I don't know. It's a tough situation.
Yeah, that Mario Verduzco, great guy.
I'm a hobbit. I can't see. Well, apparently, so Nate and Ryan are going all in on. Did Sam seem a little doomy gloomy?
I thought so.
Well, Nate's inferring the participation ribbon. We're not doing that.
No, I thought while he was talking about USC until the very end where he goes, well, I mean, Nebraska could win that game. It felt like a foregone conclusion to him that Nebraska was losing to USC. And I don't think that's true at all.
I mean, neither.
I've said all year, back when we thought Nebraska was better, back when we thought USC was better, and every time in between, I've said that Nebraska is winning this game at USC. This is the one that I picked that nobody else looked at on the schedule to start the season, because we don't know how anybody's going to be, which is why you love schedule talk, that USC was a game Nebraska was going to win, and I still believe that.
So, okay. I feel like we probably ought to talk about this.
What are we going to talk about?
Even though I'm not a huge transitive property guy, but I keep hearing, and it pissed me off when it was going on real time, when Nebraska was 5-1, and well, you could clearly see that it was going to be this and going to be that and all that negative BS that people,
which is not true,
spoke into existence that ended up being true. So they feel validated, like the ends justified the means. Hang on just real quick for a second. But Ravi, I got to tell you something. So the top 4 teams that Sam talked about, right, was Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, and Indiana, right? And Nebraska has to be better than we think for how they fared if they were able to bounce back from Indiana than Ohio State.
Yes.
Is that a stretch?
No, I think that's fair.
So
I think that's fair.
Then they, for as piss poor as they played at times against UCLA, including only having the ball 3 out of the first 24 plays.
Correct.
You somehow got that back to a 1 score. And this is in the midst of what's obviously on the heels of a philosophical change internally, right?
Yep.
And we watch what UCLA did to Iowa. We're terrified of Iowa. We were, man, that changed itself with Sullivan at quarterback. Well, I think they got it right.
Oh.
I think they got it right.
Which, like, Sullivan is throwing the ball like 7 times a game, but whatever.
We said this, though. This isn't revisionist history.
You're right. I'm just saying. He's throwing the ball like 7 to 10 times.
So UCLA go at home, defends home turf, and they play well against Iowa. And Iowa now has 6 wins?
6-4, yep.
Like what? Like who are we? Do we just know too much so we're down on Nebraska?
Yeah, it's a
because USC has the same sentiment from their fan base and their media with their head coach as we do about ours.
Probably
but we're
worse.
much close.
Probably worse.
But we're
to be
much
honest.
closer to being,
Yeah.
not to go all Dennis Green,
who we thought they were,
than
who we thought they could be,
than any of those teams.
I mean, Nebraska is, because USC had. Tell me if I'm exaggerating here. USC had playoff aspirations this year.
We just talked about what a good coaching job Minnesota did.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They went to Piscataway and lost.
Yep.
We didn't even think Rutgers was good after we beat them. We're like, oh, man, we beat it.
Is PJ Fleck a bad coach now, though?
We beat an average Rutgers team. Why do we do that to ourselves?
Because it is an inferiority complex.
So, but it's more than that, though. So it's three things.
Okay.
First of all, it's a superiority complex where
it's like this weird
we're in Nebraska.
Yeah.
Like you can't say anything bad about us, and we're going to defend our own, and we're really good with online polls and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's the inferiority complex where it's like, well, I don't know. We're going to go to SC and get hammered by 50.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's compounded by we lack impulse control. So we just say whatever.
Also true.
Right?
Also true.
So you have a superiority complex, an inferiority complex, and you lack the ability to not just to think clearly in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of what's
of
going on.
It's a lot of it. 100%. That is a lot of what's going on.
Because I just
and there's also
Joel.
I wanted to bring this up because you were. What did Joel say?
I hope he's right. My man said, I always knew USC sucked. He sure did. If they implode, because I didn't even have stones I intimated it. I didn't come out and say it. I was like, man, Adam, I don't know, man. I think that model sucks. Like
I said that to Adam.
I don't like.
I said this was an 8-4 team, which I was a hot take at the time. Obviously, that's not the case anymore. But I remember talking to Adam and being like, how did you get here with your model?
And I'm not, but he wasn't alone.
No, he wasn't at all.
He's like one of 80% of national media.
And he admitted to us that he's like, hey, I test. I don't, but this is
so
what the numbers
then maybe
say.
I was like, I went all wishy-washy. I was like, I don't know. Maybe they're better than I think. So I didn't have any conviction, right? I just was like, we'll see. I don't know how physical they are. Week in, week out. This dude has always said they're bad.
Yeah, Joel. Yeah.
Now, the funny thing is we got to play him.
Yeah, so now, but here's where this matters, right? Because USC cannot be good and Nebraska could still go lose.
Yeah.
USC could be good and Nebraska could still go win, right? Like Colorado, like Nebraska beating Colorado doesn't mean Colorado's bad.
So are we going to revisit the quality win thing that had me all hung up?
Well, sure.
Can we agree that Colorado is a better win
100%.
than
I think
SC's win over LSU?
I think so, yes. I think Colorado's better than LSU right now. I think that's a better win.
And I can say that. Oh, he was mad. I asked you if Debo said he was mad.
Yes, he was mad at the kicker, and then he swiped at the long snapper.
Yeah, okay. So when I asked you off air, what was Debo mad about? And you go, oh, no.
I thought you said D-Lo. Like your guy
our starting corner? Charlie DiLorenzo?
No, your favorite player for the Lakers.
He's not.
Yeah, you big Russell guy, D'Angelo Russell?
No.
Oh, I forgot. LeBron's your favorite guy. Yeah. No, I thought you said D-Lo, and I was like, I don't know. Why would I know if D-Lo's mad? Yes, Debo Samuel was mad.
Yeah.
And then he tried to punch his long snapper for defending his kicker.
Yeah.
What could go wrong? Just not a super dysfunctional situation at all.
Game winner.
Hey, it works, right?
He's got it.
All right.
You kind of have this,
my man Nate is going all in.
You kind of have this same thing, right? With people have all this anxiety about Nebraska, right? And they're like, I could say this because I've dealt with anxiety for most of my life. Just because I always think something bad's going to happen, then when the bad thing happens, doesn't mean I was right all along. That's not how it works. Like if you always are paranoid or anxious and think something bad's going to happen, then you're not right when something bad happens. You're just anxious, right? That's what Nebraska fans do. They're like, oh, look at the offense. Look at this. We're barely beating these other teams, whatever. and then something bad finally happens, you can't be like, I was right all along. It's like, no, they're different issues.
Right now, I feel like Nebraska is going to play exceptionally well.
Let's do it.
That's like my gut. That's early.
And not to pick on Sam, there is another thing he said that I got to bring up that is not totally accurate. We'll get to that coming up next on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill on the Pillar Exterior stage. I wanted to get back into something Sam said because it kind of like it raised my ears a little bit, but we were in the middle of another conversation, and I wanted to make sure what my perception of the situation was correct before I snap back at Sam. So, of course, I do it when he's not here to defend himself, but that's fair. That's kind of what we do here sometimes. Is he mentioned when I was talking about Venables, or when he was talking about Venables, I asked him about him. What?
Oh,
your
God.
Twitter mentions getting out of hand again?
Yes.
Is it mostly Joel and Nate?
No, Ryan dropped Dodo Bird.
Extinct?
Be honest.
Okay.
When's the last time you heard somebody use the word dodo bird or the term, like in reference to
a person?
A dodo bird.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
My man said, and he and Nate they're like enjoying each other's company. He goes, it's been a rarity in the last 20 plus years where Nebraska is the more prepared team and isn't out coached during the game. Nebraska being well prepared and well coached is like the dodo bird. You hear about it, but rarely see it. I guess I didn't know the dodo bird was a real thing.
Yeah, they're extinct. It was a real bird, but they're gone.
Yeah, it's probably the more I know.
Been gone for like 100 years.
Yeah, they're no longer with us. Pour one out for the dodo bird.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it
learned something. See, that's why I read social media.
You learned something today.
I did. Oh, I've seen those.
Yeah, they existed. They just no longer. No longer with us.
Those are ugly.
R.I.P. You know?
The story of the dodo bird.
You could probably read that later.
Yeah, okay. It got my attention.
Just going to read an article about how the dodo bird went extinct on the air.
Squirrel.
You'd like to read it aloud for our listeners so they know too?
Like, I was today years old when I learned that the dodo bird was a real thing. That's incredible.
It's all right, you know. It's all right. It happens to the best of us.
It's fine.
You know,
It's fine.
Gets away from us sometimes.
Now I'm a little distracted.
I'm just going to bring it back to defensive coordinators, okay? Sam mentioned when I was asking him about Brent Venables that defensive coordinators didn't typically work out as head coaches and struggled to find their quarterbacks. And I could see the direct examples of sometimes struggling to find the quarterbacks, but I'm like, I think there's a lot of really good head coaches that come from being defensive coordinators. The first and foremost is, Nick Saban. That's a defensive coordinator coming up. Kirby Smart, one of the best coaches in football right now. It's a defensive coordinator. You've got, even though he's not like a terrific human being necessarily, allegedly, we don't know, Mel Tucker was doing pretty well at Michigan State. It's a good football coach. But I mean, like Dan Lanning, everybody think Dan Lanning's a good coach, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dan Lanning, that's a defensive coordinator. You like Charles Huff?
I do.
Yeah, over at Marshall.
Yeah.
He's got some defensive background as well. Big one.
That's a good pull.
Brian Kelly.
Great, good. Really, yeah, he's a great. I mean,
even
really,
if you don't like what's happening right now,
really good coach.
He
drives me up the wall, but he wins.
His track
he's
record
a multi-time coach of the year.
Yeah, his track record of being a great coach is
right.
indisputable.
You're right.
Like there's a Marcus Freeman. We like Marcus Freeman again, right?
Love Marcus Freeman.
Marcus Freeman, pretty good coach, right? Like there's a lot of these dudes that are defense. Like I just don't think that's true, and I wanted to make sure we went back and got it because.
Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't.
It's I think offensive guys are more.
I did realize it makes people mad sometimes. Like if we let people just say whatever.
Yeah, it does. And I wanted, and honestly, I would have said it in real time, but I wanted to check to make sure it was more than just because my initial thought was Saban and Kirby Smart just immediately, and I was like, I want to make sure those aren't like huge outliers. And obviously they're outliers in the sense of how good they've been, but this is a thing. I think offensive guys get more opportunities because it's sexier. Offensive coordinators are a sexier hire than defensive coordinators, like in general, right? My issue, though, is, and this is what I was talking about before you got here, DB, was
How much were you talking about? I rolled in at 7:06.
Man,
were you just rolling?
I was getting on it,
The dodo bird.
Well, when I
got to get off of that.
When I don't have somebody here to distract me, I get right into the sports stuff.
Conversely, if I was just here talking to myself, I'd still be reading about the dodo
You'd be
bird.
like, so they went extinct in 1908.
I thought it was a myth.
but just like the dinosaurs.
Wow. Okay.
You know that unicorns are not real.
What are these scissors?
But narwhals are real.
Yeah.
Can you, like, I was having this conversation the other day. If you had told me, like, between the two of them, whether a unicorn or a narwhal was real, I would bet heavily on the unicorn being the real one out of those two.
Yeah.
Like, narwhals look ridiculous.
Oh, so why didn't he use, like, a unicorn?
For what?
Something that you don't see. You can't see a dodo bird anymore.
No, that's what. Yeah, I think it was kind of a little bit of a misspeak there.
I think he's just driving his point home.
Or maybe because it used to exist and now it doesn't. Like Nebraska used to be well coached and prepared, and now they're not anymore. So it's
well, he did say 20 years.
Yeah, it's been a minute. I don't think that's true.
20 years.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
Not as a blanket statement. There were some of those Bo teams that were pretty well prepared and coached well.
Yeah.
I think there's been some Matt Rule teams, some Matt Rule games here that have been well coached and well prepared. Now, it happened. We remember the ones that aren't, so it sticks out in us in a way that really frustrates us. But I don't think that's true across the board. I think that's kind of our negative perception of things that tinge the way we view the last 20 years. Because let's be honest, it's only been bad for the last 8.
Yeah. Husker X knows he thinks the line is light. I don't. I think it's
heavy for USC.
Me too.
Yeah, I do too. They're starting a guy who hasn't started at USC before at quarterback.
Yeah.
Which I think matters. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know, but first time in that.
I think the line is about right.
You think so?
Yeah.
I would have put USC closer to the key number.
6.5,
7, somewhere in there. Like somewhere between 6 and.
It's certainly not light. It's.
Yeah, if anything, it's a little heavy.
Yeah, it's a little on the large.
But we'll see where that ends up by the time we get to game time.
Maybe 7. I would imagine it's too highly bet on teams.
Yeah, I would think so for sure. I would guess it comes down. This is a fun game. Where do you think it ends? Where do you think it closes?
I'm gonna go with. Let me see the percentages right now. I'm going to go with 7.5.
Oh, that's what I was going to say.
I think 7.
That's the exact number I was going to say. I think it closes at 7.5.
That sounds about right.
That's probably where I'd have it now, is somewhere between 6.5 and 7.5.
I know, Nebraska's going to have to be careful with, and we'll get into this as the week goes on, but kicking the guys like Branch, getting him to the ground.
Yeah. That's a big place where we'll see special teams execution, whether or not they can make sure they're not getting beat by that, which I know is going to make a lot of people nervous. But there's going to be some places where that's going to matter outside of your offense and defense.
Okay, so we're fine so far. So according to Scores and Odds, 11-6, 6-13. The line opened at 9. Is been as high as 9.5. That was on 11-9 at 11-20. And is down 11-10s, which was yesterday at 6-19 at 8.5.
So we're trending in the.
So it may not come down that much.
Yeah, it's been kind of right in that range the whole time.
Maybe 8, if any.
Yeah.
Or it could balloon back. I don't know.
All the way up to 10.
Yeah. That Nebraska as a double-digit dog is not
great.
Yeah, teams cover.
Yeah. So if it gets up to 10, that's a bad sign.
Well, I don't know if I love 8.5.
What are we, 10-0?
I mean, while we're being honest.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Wow.
I do think it comes down a little bit, though. We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's out. It's just out here. Speaking of some lines, though.
My man in KC cannot really believe that I didn't know about dodo. Does everybody know about dodo birds?
I think maybe not everybody. I'm sure not everybody.
I am.
No.
I'm an animals guy too.
Like you are kind of you're an amateur zoologist.
How did I not know that?
I feel like you're also like.
Well, to your defense, it's not really an animal anymore since it doesn't exist.
It was.
I thought it was made up.
Yeah.
No, it's not made up.
No.
It's not
I mean, it's like an old cartoons they used that.
Yeah.
That's probably where you're getting that from.
Have you not seen the Crudes?
Roadrunners are real too, right? Like as a bird? Like they're in cartoons, but those are also real animals.
Don't know if I committed that to the knowledge Rolodex. Let's just leave it at that.
It's your own question.
Bugs Bunny. Bunnies are real.
Yeah.
They don't talk much. Less, at least, than Bugs did. He's pretty loquacious.
Wow.
Okay. I'm trying to think what else. I'm just trying to help. I'm trying to be educational.
Are you going to go to Coyotes next?
Coyotes also real. Yeah.
You're,
Ducks.
You're a funny guy.
Both Daffy
you're
and Donald.
Real funny guy, Ravi.
Daffy and Donald. Real.
Dodo does not seem like a real name.
I mean, it's a dumb name for it, for sure. Although Roadrunner's a pretty dumb name also.
But that's what they do.
It's a runner of the road. Well, maybe they're dumb. Maybe dodo birds are dumb. That's why they're extinct. That's why they're dodos.
No, you're exactly right.
What's up, Marcus?
Marcus Freeman? Also a good football coach?
Yeah. Mike Tomlin, good football coach.
I still think Russell Wilson sucks.
More crow at the end of this season, Russell or Dion for you? Would you like that served warm?
It's going to be Dion because Russell, I can always be like, it's a good organization. It's Mike Tomlin, whatever. I can pivot. I don't have a lot of places to pivot on Dion.
You're going to really be upset when he's in Dallas next year.
Well, no, I'll be thrilled when he's in Dallas next year. It's going to be hilarious. Actually, you know what?
I met Shador.
You know what? Well, yeah, and who's going to coach him? It's going to be Dion. You know Shador's not going to play for anybody else but Dad. That's how it works.
Mike Vrabel coaching.
We'll be back with Bill Benner to talk some National College football coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Two receivers split left, including the tight end Gunnar Hill. Shotgun snap, back to throw. Ewers down the field, looking down there for Golden. He caught it. Touchdown, Texas. Turned around to Matthew Golden, hauled it in, falling down backwards. A 32-yard touchdown catch.
Here's the snap. He's got a man in the end zone. Wells, and he catches it. Does he hold it? Touchdown! Ole Miss right under the goalpost. Juice Wells snags it out of the sky.
Miles takes the snap of the belt. Miami brings he just lobbed into the end zone for Lane. Dives. Does he hang on? Yes, he does. Touchdown, Chase Lane. Touchdown, Jackets.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DBM Ravi, Lulla. We're joined now by Bill Bender of the Sporting News covering college football. Bill, how are you this morning?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Bill, no softballs early. We're going to go thinking cap right away. Of these three teams, Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana, which team is easiest to cap for you, and does that affect what you think about them in order of how good they are?
I think Indiana is probably the easiest to see how this is going to go. I don't think they're going to win in Columbus. I think Michigan would have beat them had they had competent quarterback play or experienced quarterback play or any quarterback play. And, you know, I'd be worried about them up front against Ohio State or Penn State if it came to that. And not to mention, here's one of the debates that's going to come up with Indiana. I'm not trashing them. I'm just, you know, they've had a great season. I just feel like if they bumped into a Georgia or a Tennessee, they would probably have some problems getting that running game going. And I don't know if they have a resume that you can look at and say, they're awesome. But at the same time, I'm very happy for Kurt Cignetti and what he's been able to accomplish there.
So how does that differ knowing that you watched Ohio State and Penn State play one another? When you slot the other two teams?
Well, I think Ohio State's the best of the three. You know, the experience. They've lost. They may go in. Here's the crazy thing about this playoff format. They may play 4 games against top 5 teams if they get to the conference championship and get a rematch with Oregon in theory. And if they were to lose to Oregon, they'd probably be a 5 seed. I think that's wrong. I think, you know, this format needs to be open to having multiple teams from the same conference be in the top 4 seeds. They do it in basketball. Do we ever complain when Kansas and Baylor get 1 seeds in basketball from the same conference?
Yeah.
So I think that's something I'm actually writing about tomorrow. I'm kind of spoiling the lead. And then Penn State, I mean, they were the team that got criticized last week. I think they're solid. But those handful of plays against Ohio State were costly. I will say this: if Penn State played Indiana, I would pick Penn State for Penn.
It doesn't, for whatever the reason, it doesn't seem like Penn State is a team that I think is like, oh, that's top 4 or 5 worthy. But then I pit it against like Tennessee or Alabama or Miami, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that's probably right on par, right? So some of it is like, are they meeting my eye for like aesthetically really good teams? But then I have to like kind of walk that back a little and say, well, compared to like, 4 through 10, I could see it.
Yeah, I've struggled with that all year. I mean, on one hand, Penn State has scored more than 35 points in only 1 game this season, and that was against Kent State. On the other, this is part of the season where like you said, we could do that for just about anybody. And there's not a dominant team there. There's not, when Georgia's got 2 losses and Alabama's kind of like has lost to Vandy and then turns around and beats LSU 42-13 at night at Tiger Stadium, you're kind of like, I can't figure this out. So I've had that problem all season. So I think it adds to the fun. I think it adds to the unpredictability factor. And with Penn State, yeah, they're solid. You just said it. We have them projected to play Ole Miss in the first round of the playoff right now, I would probably pick Ole Miss to win that game. But
isn't that weird?
It still feels like a coin flip.
Yeah. Well.
Bill, let's stay on the SEC there for a second because I'm looking at Texas, Tennessee, Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia, and Texas A&M. 6 SEC teams in the top 15 in the AP poll came out yesterday. If you're looking at, okay, probably only 4 of those teams are getting in, which 2 teams do you trust the least out of that group?
So the 2 teams that I would trust the least and the 4 that I think will get in would be, this is a tough one to sort out all those teams. I think if Georgia beats Tennessee, I could see Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas, and Alabama, and maybe Tennessee I'll get in, depending on how it shakes out the last little bit. Texas A&M, I'm not sure I trust because of the Le'Veon Moss injury. I think they would. They're not going to beat Texas. I think Texas is by far the best of the 6.
It seems like it, doesn't it? We've been. I'm glad you said that.
But we don't love their quarterback.
We've been having this conversation for like 6 weeks, and almost once or twice a week I'll say, gosh, it's hard to not be in love with Texas's talent. Like, they seem really complete. And then I go, God, I just don't love their quarterback play, though. I bet I say that once or twice a week.
Well, and here's the thing. Like, if we could take the half against Georgia off the record, so to speak, like, so you strike that from the record like we do in courtrooms, then you would think they were the number 1 team in the country. And I've had that same kind of conversation with you. I think Quinn Ewers answered a little bit last week, though. 5 touchdowns, throwing the ball down the field effectively. That's the key. When they can do that, they're pretty complete. And I know what the rankings say, but in our bowl projections, I just kind of threw it out there because I was like, this is how I feel. I think Texas and Ohio State are the best teams in the country. And I know Ohio State has lost to Oregon, and I know they have to prove that. I understand that doesn't feel logical, but they lost by 1 point on the road, and I will pick them to beat Oregon if they get in a rematch. Texas won't have to play Georgia in the SEC championship game. I don't think that's going to happen, so I'm probably going to pick them to win the SEC title. So of those 6 teams you listed off, I trust them the most. I trust A&M the least. And those 4 in the middle you mentioned, they're hard to sort out.
But you think there could be 5 teams from the SEC that get in, though?
Possible.
Well, here's the thing.
The Big Ten. It's possible, but I would say unlikely because Notre Dame's in the way.
Okay, but here's the thing, though, Bill. Let this play out in your head. Number 1, who's more apt to get 2 teams in, the Big 12 or the ACC? And if you think they both only get 1, then you may be onto something with your 5.
Well, yeah, I do think the ACC is only going to get 1 because Miami lost. And that opened the door for that. You know, we'd all been kind of waiting for Miami to lose. I don't know how many times I've heard the phrase playing with fire with them over the last month, and they got burnt. And I think the Big 12 will get 1, and I'm starting to wonder if that 1 is going to be Colorado and Deion, the way that their schedule's opened up for them.
Yeah.
And if not them, BYU. Colorado-BYU would be an outstanding Big 12 championship game, by the way. So Notre Dame, group of 5, there's 4. That leaves 4 for I think those 4 Big 10 teams we've talked about are in. So the SEC needs one of these teams to lose. They need a Notre Dame to lose, or they need, Ohio State to beat Indiana so badly.
Yeah,
that,
they fall out of favor.
You know what I mean? Like, remember Michigan State, Ohio State a few years ago where Ohio State beat them like 56-0?
Yep.
They would need that to happen.
And that was all that was it. That's like, yep, they're out.
So if my Army Golden Knights beat Notre Dame, then we're talking maybe 5 SEC teams.
I think that's the other one I didn't even think about, so you brought it up. And that's lazy prep by me. But, yeah, Army has a chance in that matchup. Yeah, it's their best chance to do it. Really love Bryson Daly. Really love what they do. Problem is, Team 1 Academy team, and we saw what they did to Navy. Navy helped them out a lot with the turnovers. This Notre Dame team, if you could strike the Northern Illinois game from the record, what a team they've looked like the last month. They are destroying teams. their defense hasn't allowed 100 yards passing only one of the last 4 games, and that was against Georgia Tech. And they just continue to play awesome defense. I would not want to play Notre Dame right now, honestly. I think they're playing as good as any of these teams.
So, Bill, I'm glad you went there because let's take Northern Illinois off the record. Let's strike it from the record the same way we're trying to strike the first half of Georgia from Texas is. How high does Notre Dame then look in your mind? Like, could I make the argument that they look like the best team in the country?
I mean, in some ways, yes, but that loss alone, I mean, they're inching toward maybe getting a home playoff game, and they understand that. They don't get to have a bye week.
Mm-hmm.
If they go 11-1 and beat Army and beat USC convincingly, and they play Virginia this week, they're 3-touchdown favorites against Virginia. It would be hard not to get them into one of those home games, and I think we have them projected to play Indiana right now. Most people will pick Notre Dame to win that game. Selfishly, as somebody who's grown up here in Central Ohio, I kind of want them to run it back with Ohio State just to see it, after last year's dramatic finish. And if that matchup presented itself, how fun would that be? Especially with how it ended in Ryan Day, and don't have to go through all that again. But I do think they're one of those teams to watch because if they continue to play like that, and Riley Leonard and their running game continues, that'll matter in the playoffs. They'll have a chance.
So, well, how interesting is it to be having these in this conversation? It's twofold, this question. Interesting is it to be having these conversations about these teams at the top, and with probably the exception of, unless you want to talk Leonard's growth or you like Colorado, we're not talking about this quality of quarterback play. Even Gabriel, who takes good care of the ball and he's played for 34 years. It's kind of like he's almost like the third or fourth person down the road we talk about with Oregon. He hasn't even come up yet in this conversation, and he's not probably going to be a high draft pick. But is it weird to be talking about these upper echelon teams, and we're not even talking about specific quarterback and good play?
Yeah, I had somebody tell me that over the weekend. There's not a team that we were so accustomed to in the last 10 years. That's a great point because Deshaun Watson carrying a national championship team, Joe Burrow, even J.J. McCarthy last year on some level. The way he didn't have the huge numbers, but he only lost one start at Michigan. There's not a dominant first-round quarterback. I would make the argument that it's Shedeur. I know Nebraska beat them, and I know they have 2 losses, but he's the one quarterback that I'm like, the reason Nebraska beat them, they shut him down. And he hasn't been shut down often. So I think they're maybe the one team you could do that with. You look at Dylan Gabriel, Will Howard, Quinn Ewers, Jackson Dart. They're super efficient, but I don't think you go into a game thinking, man, we're going to get overwhelmed by these guys. They're going out and doing their job. So that I actually think this playoff will be dictated a little bit on defense. If you look at all the playoff teams projected and then go look at total defense and scoring defense, you're going to see a lot of the playoff teams on there. So we may have some lower than expected scoring games. Tennessee's a great example. They're winning ugly, not pretty. They run the ball 30 times a game, play great defense around a young quarterback. That might be the formula. Who knows?
I look at them, and I'm telling you, Bill, full disclosure, I just think, they're not very good. I don't even know how else to say it except for I just don't know how they're going to.
I love it. I love you because you just come out and no filter.
Like it's like, how are they winning? There's a couple of teams like that. So let me ask you this. Okay, this was going to be the follow-up, but you gave a good answer, so I got distracted. I said something over the weekend on social media where I said it seems like cohesiveness and kind of the culture. I know it's a dirty C word and you can't really see it, but I just watched these teams and you could tell who's connected. And the best analogy I could give for teams at the top is, for as good as Ohio State is, they don't look overly connected as like the working units, a cohesiveness as a team. It's almost like they're good in spite of all their talent. Notre Dame, coincidentally, looks like a very cohesive, connected team. Does that make sense?
It does on the defensive side if you watch it, right? Like, because, yes, Ohio State is very good, and they had a couple additions in the offseason, I think, but from defensive line to linebacker to safety, corner, that Notre Dame defense is playing as well as anybody right now. The numbers don't just say that. They force turnovers. They've got a lot of veteran talent on there. They've all played together. I mean, you take that down to what I watch every weekend with my kids. I mean, I don't know why youth sports parents, here comes a quick tangent. I don't know why youth sports parents don't understand that the longer your kids play together, they become friends, and they are exactly what you just said, connected. Yeah. And I think Notre Dame's been doing – that's a long-winded way with a small tangent to tell you these Notre Dame guys have played a lot of football together, and they're pretty good.
We're talking with Bill Bender of the Sporting News. Bill, I wanted to return to that quarterback point here for a second, because you and DB both made really good points about how much of an outlier this year appears to be. If I kind of put your feet to the fire here a little bit, could I make the argument that only Miami in the top even 25, not just in the top 12, has the only quarterback that you actually actively fear?
A game changer.
Yes.
He is a game changer, and that's why everybody made such a big deal about him fumbling against Georgia Tech, but he put that team on his back quite a bit. And their defense had some lapses. They're a slow-starting team in the first half. Cam Ward may make a few turnovers, but he is the game changer, and that's exactly right. I mentioned Shedeur. I think Shedeur is that on some level, but Travis Hunter is their game changer.
Mm-hmm.
And, of those other quarterbacks, I'll give Dylan Gabriel this. He's been perfect for what Oregon asked him to do.
Sure.
High percentage throws, high completion percentage. His numbers are very much like Bo Nix. But we haven't – and he played very well against Ohio State. If it's fourth quarter and you're down 4, and he's got to lead the game-winning drive, I guess that's what we're going to figure out in the playoff if he can do that.
Bill, we're kind of watching college football, and every week, like, something crazy happens, and you're like, what? Of the improbables, would you start with the way KU, and that line was tight, so I should throw them out, and the ending wasn't crazy. But if I give you like Missouri and Oklahoma or Utah and BYU, even you could make the case Texas Tech should have beat Colorado, I think. When you're looking at kind of how these improbable things are happening, how are you explaining these? Because it almost seems like there's a handful of them every week.
Well, I'll put it to you this way, and ego aside. So I do college football picks and NFL picks for Sporting News every week, and I'm struggling in college. And I'm not afraid to admit it, because you go into a week thinking a handful of things that are going to happen, and they don't. And whereas NFL, I'm on fire, and I'm like, typically I struggle with NFL. So the NFL to me has become like in the afternoon window this week, I knew the Eagles were going to beat the Cowboys by a lot, and I knew the Chargers were going to beat the Titans by a lot. You go to an afternoon window in college, and then you're thinking, well, Texas Tech's going to keep this close. They lose by 2 scores. And I did get BYU right with Utah from the standpoint it was going to be close. I didn't think it would end the way that it did, though. I mean, and that's one of those another unpredictable finish. And I had no idea back in August when I talked to you guys that BYU would be 9-0 and sitting there at a number 3 seed in the college football playoff. What a story that's been.
Yeah.
Bill,
that's Ravi's team quietly.
I love Kalani Sitake. I think I don't know why. I'm obsessed. It's BYU and Jeff Monk in an Army. Those are my dudes. For no real reason. But Bill, I wanted to, I'm thinking about this as we're talking about, like, well, if you take this part of this game out for this team, and then you toss out
because you kind of want to do. That's how the season.
Yeah, because I'm not making fun. I'm being genuine here. So we determine the playoff by the eye test, right? So like maybe it's a little bit more like a sport that you judge, like a gymnastics or a figure skating. Should we toss out the low and high scores for each team, and we'll have a better idea of who they are?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I have a column tomorrow writing about how my nitpick with the entire thing right now is that tomorrow, when they release the second set, we're going to have Ohio State 2, Oregon 1, and then you're going to throw it on a grid, the playoff bracket, and then you're going to have Ohio State 5. I think it's absolute nonsense. We can still put teams in automatic qualifiers. That's fine. The 4 conference champions and a group 5 team. I get it. But why can't we seed them 1 to 12 how they should be seeded? I was telling this to my son last night. He's in 8th grade. I was showing him. I was like, here's 12. He goes, and here's the bracket.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, that doesn't make sense. So, he's right. He follows the sport. And I'm like, I've been dealing with this since they had a coaches pool and split national titles. I can't explain all this. So what? Don't you guys agree, though? Because like I was saying, in the NCAA, I think those top 4 seeds should be treated like a number 1 seed in the NCAA men's basketball tournament.
I'm with you. I had no problem seeing St. John, Georgetown, and I mean the SC, the Big East in the 80s. I've seen the ACC in the 90s, the Big 12.
Yeah,
like we've seen it before. Bill,
can I make the argument that the automatic qualifiers should get home games guaranteed,
I don't like the
but
AQ
not buys?
That's fair. That's a fair compromise, but. Just 5 years ago in the NCAA, I don't remember one person complaining when the NCAA men's basketball tournament had Virginia, Duke, and North Carolina with 1 seed.
Yep. No, because they're 3 of the 4 best teams in the country. I mean, right?
And you won it all. So, sometimes the best teams come from the best conference. But I would compromise that. So BYU, maybe you don't get a top 4 seed, but at least we'll give you a first-round home game in Provo. They would deserve that. I'm going to steal that, by the way. That's a great idea.
Well, because for me, I'm looking at, you don't want to financially penalize the teams from worser conferences, right? So that you give them the home game, but you probably don't want to overly reward them where it's like, hey, you're obviously not one of the 4 best teams in the country.
Well,
why are you getting a free pass to the quarterfinals?
Well, and I just don't like this theory that's popped up the last couple of weeks where people are saying, well, it's advantageous to be in the 5 seed because
no, it's
get
not.
A home game against.
No, it's not.
I don't think it is either.
I want to buy. Give me a buy.
100%.
I want to buy. The NFL's had wild cards since 1972, and only 7 teams have won the Super Bowl out of the wild card. So we can't sit here and say it's advantageous to play an extra game at any level of football because it's another chance to lose. But there is some legs to it. Like you take Ohio State and say, as a 5 seed, you're playing the 12, and then you got to play Miami. You still got to go out and play the games. But the fact that theory even exists tells me that why can't we just seed them 1 to 12 the way they should be seeded?
Bill, could you ever see? Now this is super high schoolish, literally, but like for district play and stuff, and we've seen this, and not to go out EPL soccer either, but we'd like serpentine points, and then you come up with your districts, and it's how you see teams. So in essence, you should have 2 really good teams at the top. You should have a decent middle and a low end. Could you ever see college football getting to like the NFL where they back in meaningful scheduling?
I think so. I think, I've always said the NFL, and I love both. I'm not one of those guys who college rules. NFL's terrible. I like things about both sports. I think the NFL does an outstanding job of flexing teams in and out of the schedule, of putting, riveting games like even last night, Sunday Night Football, great game. They're really good at that. And a good playoff race, even though their flaw is, you can, suppose you could win the AFC North with an 8-9 record. I don't necessarily like that, but most of the time it works itself out in the NFL. Yeah. We know who the 7 good teams are. So I think the more college football kind of emulates the scheduling end and the playoff end, because to me the best playoff postseason product in all of sports is the NFL playoff. And I want to see how the college football playoff compares to that, I guess. The first 2 days of the NCAA tournament are great in men's basketball. It's only great if there are upsets. You know what I mean? We'll see if the college football playoff stacks up to that.
That's our guy, Bill Bender from the Sporting News. Bill, we appreciate it as always. Great stuff. We'll talk to you again soon.
Have a great week. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
They go with two receivers, one right, one left. Play clock at 1, snap to Murray. And he's going to keep it running right to the outside 10. Stays in bounds at the 5 and into the end zone for his second touchdown. Then he takes the football and hoists it into the casino.
Purdy time. Purdy pushed out to his right now. Going to still keep the ball and roll to his left. Vita Vea chasing him. Gets his shoulders around. Throws to the back of the end zone. Caught by George Kittle.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, Capital R, and Lincoln. It's time for Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook, the best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets. Make sure you keep that money over here on the right side of the river. Don't go paying for roads in Iowa. And listen, they already think they're smarter. They're not. Don't pay for their educational systems. You keep that money right here in Nebraska where it belongs. Go over to the Warhorse Casino in Lincoln or in Omaha. Have a little state pride. Keep that money right here and get your bets into Warhorse Sportsbook. No bets, no glory.
I have a perfect.
What do you got today?
I have a practical example of what you were making fun of me for last week.
Well, I make fun of you for a lot, so you're going to have to narrow it down.
No, you went all in.
Okay, what do we got?
And, by the way, I saw you spending time with one of these people all night on Friday night, and Tyler Mosman.
Oh, yeah, I love T-Mos.
You went through this whole, you went through this whole analogy, these stories of what people would do to me, and I would say,
oh, man, he's a good guy.
I like that guy. So I just found a walking example
in real time.
Yeah,
with Nate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, he's just going bananas, right?
Yeah.
But there's a level of he could be right? But it was super snarky, and it was like, I mean, he just was going all in. And at the very end, I'm like, I think I like that guy. Do you know what I mean? I don't know why.
That's the best. It's I know.
At first, I was mortified. I was like, golly, man, relax.
I know exactly why.
And then I just kept reading, and I was like,
if anybody sprinkles in even a little niblet of truth in anything they say, you automatically you start to give them the benefit of the doubt. You're like, oh, that was 99% horse poop, but
no, that's not.
They
like that.
sprinkled a little bit of cheese on top. I like cheese. I could deal with that. You know, there's probably some protein.
So do you know where I landed though? Okay, comedian.
There's probably some protein in that horse poop. All right.
But do you know why I really was like, I'll ride with him? Because at the end of the day, you're kind of right though. This might be the cheese.
This is the cheese.
I hate moral victories. He started out on a moral victory tangent.
And so you're like, ooh, I'm listening.
Now, everything else was like,
I was like straight madness.
I was like, that's a little harsh. Oh, I wouldn't have said that. Oh, that was not
like
necessary. But I'm like, you know what? I hate moral victories. I want to go compete. So I'm riding with that guy.
Is
that the cheese?
Yes, that's 100% the cheese. If you were in the John Wick movies, like the whole thing would have been done after about 10 minutes if after they killed your dog, they just sent you an apology note and you'd be like, I can ride with that guy. You'd be like, good dude. Self-aware.
I took a picture from
realizes he shouldn't have killed my dog.
Well, that might be pushing it. But I did take a picture from out at game day of that John Wick picture.
Yeah.
It's one of the greatest pictures ever.
You're just steaming pile of horse crap. Here's a little bit of shredded cheese on top.
I don't like moral victories.
And you're like, I mean, it kind of looks like a burrito. I'll be all right.
Whatever. It's not entirely true.
It's not entirely false either.
Where'd you spend all your time Friday night?
Hung out with T-Mose.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, but T-Mose is always nice to me.
He doesn't have a ton of redeeming qualities.
He's always nice to me.
Although you guys do like talking about people.
Yeah.
He goes hard, doesn't he?
Yeah. Listen, me and T-Mose have a great time.
That dude.
I think we have a similar sarcastic bent, little snarkiness.
Yep.
So our vibes kind of match a little bit. No, we hung out.
You both had bougie taste?
Yeah. We went, although we went to a place that wasn't bougie after the game.
Wow, now you guys are going out, huh?
We've hung out before.
Not that I'm jealous. It's fine.
I mean, listen, if you liked spending any time in public whatsoever. How many times I invited you places and I was like, this dude's not coming?
That's fine.
Listen.
It's fine.
It's all right. I thought about texting you. I was like, nah, there's no way he's coming over here.
That's fine.
Although it was pretty low key. There weren't a lot of people in there.
Yeah.
Although the ref that did your game was there, or the whole crew was.
Oh.
There was a couple of ref crews in there. One of them that did Miller North, Miller South came in, and then the one that did your guys' game came in. The crew that did your guys' game.
They were fine.
There was a couple things I was like, nah, I don't know about that, but I can say that because I'm not a coach. Thought some of the personal fouls versus lack of personal fouls were a little questionable.
So that was
saw a Papio guy take a swing, didn't have a flag on that, so that was all right.
As Jernigan almost lost his mind.
Yeah.
But we had a great art. So the guy on our side
thought Lamanji might kill somebody.
So
that was later that he got flagged. There was a dust up, and then the only flag came out on Lamanji.
So two ways to disarm. I saw one their official did, and one our coach did.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going. Hey, that's unsportsmanlike. You can't run after.
So technically, in high school, it's a delay of game.
I know it is. Yeah.
Yep.
So I said
we looked it up.
I said it wrong.
Yeah.
But I was like, it is.
It's a penalty.
It's a penalty.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, it's not. And I go, well, yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
I said, that's a penalty. And he goes, well, we'll just respot the ball from where he fair caught it. And I go,
it's still penalty.
It's still, and I did. I said, it's still
penalty.
But I'm not, you can hear my tone. It's just like we're just talking.
No, I was standing right there. I heard this conversation.
So the very next play, our defensive back
Yeah.
needed to pull his knee pads down. And he called his name like 10 times. He's like, 4. And we coach Charlie, so we know Charlie doesn't always pay attention. It wasn't personal.
Yeah.
Like, he just is in his own world.
Yeah, doing his own thing.
So there was a tackle along the sideline. I was like, hey, D-Lo, hey, pull your knee pads down before you got to come sit. And I gave him the motion. He pulled them down. And I looked at the official, and I said, see, I did you a solid. He goes, appreciate that, DB. But the funniest thing, though, on the sideline in front, this was all within like the same 3 seconds.
Yeah.
The funniest thing, though, was when Lamanji got flagged, he sat on it for like 10 minutes. And after about 10 minutes, the side judge was, because he was giving us some grace. And Coach Lamanji goes, do you know you gave me my first 15-yarder? No warning, no nothing. And the official just kind of looked at him and smiled, and he goes, yeah, streak's over. It's just real casual.
You know what's funny about the sideline warning is, so me and T-Mose are there, and we're snarky. That dude told your sideline to get back about 100 times.
Yeah, we're the worst.
Well, but there was also it's not like the play was going on.
So the one time I do think they should really be pissed is special teams. Because, those dudes are booking.
Yes, 100%, right?
Yeah.
But, you guys, there was a dead ball. I think somebody was injured, so you guys had kind of crept onto the field a little bit. You were talking to your guys. He's like, coaches, I need you to get back. Sidelines, get back. I was like, nothing's happening, man.
I just didn't want 69 to be hurt.
No, I got you.
He's a good – you never want anybody hurt.
What are we doing out there? And then I will say, so the funny thing was, T-Mose and I are sitting there with the fair catch you were talking about. And I was like, it's either an illegal fair catch signal, which is a penalty, because it was – it looked like he was doing a little doggy paddle. Didn't look so much like a fair catch. Or he ran after a fair catch signal, which is also a penalty. One way or another, that is a penalty.
Do you want your slice of cheese?
Yes.
You know how 15 was giving it to us all game?
Yeah.
And he did kind of the sliding tackle late.
Yeah, what was that?
I don't know.
I've never seen that in my life.
Here's the deal, though.
He tried to slide tackle a guy going in the end zone.
So our players are furious, right? But I told him, I was like, hey, I really enjoy watching you play. You're a tough kid, kind of competitive. Because after the first time we played him, he was super cool. So I liked him.
And then he tries to slide tackle Eli, and you're like, not a big deal.
I didn't care.
It's fine.
He's just out here. He's just competing.
Yeah, this isn't soccer, brother.
So I tapped him up. I was like, man, 15, I love the way you play. My coaches are mortified. I was like, you trying to tell me we don't want guys that play hard like that?
Yeah, I want guys that play football hard, not play football hard.
Yeah, I like you, though.
T-Mose and I just looked at each other like, did I just see that?
Giving it to our guys all game. He's a tough little dude.
Man.
You weren't vibing with that?
I've never seen somebody try and slide tackle someone in an American football game.
Knock it off.
I don't even know what that was. Look what's happening here.
Well, you can bet on the fact that this will be highly competitive this week.
It will be. Westside Omaha North coming up in one semifinal.
And
Kearney, Millard South in the other semifinal. It'll be interesting. We'll see what happens this weekend. That's Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. Warhorse Sportsbook, no bets, no glory. We'll be back to wrap up the show. Coming up next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DBM Ravi, Lulla. Reminder, Nebraska's last home game of the season is just under 2 weeks away, which means the last live breakfast of the season is coming up as well. We are hoping and praying not only that you join us, but that DB's breakfast sandwich doesn't get eaten before he gets a chance to get it. I'm talking to you, Micah Benning. Make sure you get to eventbrite.com, sign up, get your reservation or your table reserved for November 22nd. That's a Friday. And you're going to have a chance to win tickets to that Wisconsin game from our friends at Tickets for Less.
Talk about just adding cheese to something I don't normally like.
What's that?
That's Micah.
Yeah. Is that why you did that? Like in order to like your kids, you're like, man, I got to polish some turds around here.
So he realizes we brought him up for the playoffs, right? Like you're one of us.
Yeah.
First thing this dude says this morning. It's 6:40. You know, Westside, we're in the semifinals, right?
Yep.
You know what this dude said?
What?
What's that?
Told you a month ago, don't sleep on North. Bro, we play them. That's fine. Good. You're right. Let's move on.
Because his boy Jones is over there.
Why would you say that to me?
I mean, listen, if we're going to pull at the string at why Micah says stuff, we might be here all day.
Told you don't sleep on North.
We might be here all day.
When was that he said that? Was that was at the beginning? I know it was at least at the beginning of the playoffs. It might have been with a regular season.
I think it was longer ago. I think it was a little bit longer ago than that.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think we can't really. I don't think we can get too much into the motivations behind why Micah says stuff. We might.
Man, listen, mix in a good morning.
Just every now and then.
How about that? Mix in a good morning.
Hey, there was a story that I wanted to get to, football related, but not on the field. Diego Pavia for Vanderbilt.
That was one of your stinky lines.
It was one of my stinky lines, but Diego Pavia says something stinks more than that Vanderbilt line, and that's the way the NCAA treats junior college players.
I can't believe it.
Why is that?
Because he could win.
He should win. On the surface, it sounds a little crazy, right?
We better reset it. So
for people that don't know, Diego Pavia is suing the NCAA over junior college eligibility. Basically, when a player plays junior college, they lose 2 years of eligibility before transferring to the NCAA, which doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense because the NCAA and the NJCAA are not the same thing.
Yep.
And here's where it really gets me, right? And I thought of this immediately.
Yeah.
They don't do the same thing to prep schools. Prep schools, you don't lose any eligibility.
Yeah.
And you can go for 1 year. I've seen guys go to prep school for a couple years. They go to military academies, whatever. Kyrie Thomas, right here for Creighton, went to a prep school on the East Coast, came back, still had 4 years of eligibility. JUCO players, though, because we call it a JUCO instead of a prep school, they lose eligibility for every year they spend at JUCO. Diego Pavia is suing the NCAA in order to reinstate the eligibility of JUCO players.
Yeah, so Lincoln Lance sent this to me last week. It was Friday. And kind of he laid it out, and I said, that's interesting. I think he'll win too.
I think so, because here's the argument he's making.
But here's the response though that got my attention. He says, "You think?" I actually think the House and the Senate are going to give them an antitrust exemption.
If they don't, they're in a lot of trouble.
So,
because they've been talking about that kind of as part of the settlement.
Yeah.
Because if they don't get the antitrust exemption,
so when he said that also makes sense.
It does, but I don't know if that
you
will
have to
apply
rectify it going forward
here. Because here's where I think it helps them. Because this could actually open up a huge can of worms to the NCAA.
Well, you can't go back and get it, so you mean going forward?
Yes. So here's
could be a mess.
Here's the can of worms that it opens up, right? Number one is the grounds that he is stating that he's suing on is that they're basically
I'll retweet it.
Their eligibility rules, and I believe he calls them arbitrary eligibility rules, and their arbitrary decision to enforce JUCO eligibility on 4-year college players, it limits their ability to make money off their name, image, and likeness. That's why I think he can win, because that's the approach he's taking. But where I think the exemption comes in, because listen, if you go, hey, your eligibility rules are hindering my ability to make money off my own name, image, and likeness, it's real easy to keep pulling that string and be like, well, why are there eligibility rules at all? Really easy to pull that string.
Oh, you're that dude.
Yeah, because if you open that door, now that's where the exemption comes in. Because if you get the exemption, you may have to give up JUCO eligibility, but you can probably keep the 4 years.
Yeah, I'm not interested in that rabbit hole.
That's
the string pulling thing.
That's one of the first things I thought of. Because if he wins, there's nothing to stop the next guy from suing and saying, hey, why do I only get to play 4 years?
Yeah.
We've seen other guys play up to 6 and 7, or there's a guy in his 9th year, the Miami tight end, right? So it's like, so this is kind of arbitrary. And because their waiver system's so bad and their decision-making on the waiver system
But you do have to make an appeal, though, for extra years. So it does go through some judicial process.
It does, but there's the 4 years is sort of arbitrary. Like when you think about it.
So you almost wonder.
So that's why I started pulling at the string.
Well, because you almost wonder. So there's a ton of people. There's probably 40, 50% of the people that I talk to about the whole red shirt thing, especially in the hills of like this year where some guys get the red shirt, some guys don't, where you just get 5 years to exhaust eligibility, period.
Yeah. So they're going to have to come up with some sort of different rule, whether that applies to JUCO guys, whether it applies to regular guys, whatever. And they're going to need the antitrust exemption. Otherwise, the next lawsuit is from a 4-year guy that wants to play more or wants to make more money off his name, image, and likeness. Like if this is a business, which is how it's now being treated, why does he arbitrarily have to leave after 4 years?
Term of employment. Well,
if the university's like, yeah, we would obviously.
Well, aren't they going to be employment agreements?
Right. But if the university, see, here's where it gets tricky. What if Oregon's like, yeah, we would keep Dylan Gabriel for another year? What if Ohio State's like, yeah, we would keep Will Howard for another year, and they would like to extend his employment agreement? That's when you end up with a problem of, so this thing is arbitrarily limiting both what the university and the player want.
I think university guideline. Well,
you can go to school for as long as you want.
Yeah, I understand.
You could go get a master's, go get a doctorate. You could walk out of there full-fledged MD if you wanted to. The eligibility rules are totally arbitrary because because we're like, it takes about 4 years to graduate.
They better get this one over hurry and start with the exemption and then work on the legalese. Because
yes, there is a rabbit hole here that is deep trouble for the NCAA.
So, but the deep governing so their bylaws are supersede.
They supersede
the precedent so far
because the precedent hadn't been challenged yet.
Yeah,
no one has sued. That's the only reason. That's the only reason the bylaws haven't just crumbled is because nobody sued them yet, right? If you sue on the terms of just general eligibility, then there's nothing to keep those bylaws afloat unless they get the antitrust exemption. That's the only reason salary caps are legal in pro sports, right? Because it's the same thing. They're limiting they're limiting a person's potential ability to earn. Eligibility is just an artificial salary cap, essentially, on how much you can earn over the course of your career. That's the argument you would make. That's an argument I would make, at least.
Yeah, I don't want to play that long, though.
You don't, maybe. But what if you're a guy like Dillon Gabriel, who's not playing NFL football? Dillon Gabriel is not an NFL quarterback. He could play for as long as he wants at Oregon, and Oregon.
He already has.
I know, but what's to keep him from playing 2 more years?
Bo Nix.
What about Bo Nix?
Well, he just broke his record for most games started, right? So
right.
Interestingly enough, they both did it at
Oregon.
And maybe the more success Bo Nix has, Dillon may think, you know what, it just takes the right fit. I only need one team to fall in love with me.
Maybe, but if somebody's still writing 7-figure checks every year for you, be like, hey, I already have the one team.
Do you really think he's getting 7 figures?
At Oregon? Absolutely.
I do not.
I think
that's one of the more ridiculous things.
Okay, so let's say it's $500,000. Is that a ridiculous number for Dillon Gabriel at Oregon?
No.
Okay, so let's call it $500,000. If he's like, hey, I can just keep cashing $500,000 checks to do this thing I already know I'm good at. Like, at some point, maybe the college guys that aren't getting good grades from the NFL are like, well, hey, I already have a team that fell in love with me. It's the Oregon Ducks. Why not just keep cashing those checks?
That's interesting, too, because TK is like, and you and I talked about him 4 weeks ago when Utah hit the skids.
Mm-hmm.
Cam Rising may play until he's 40.
100%.
Although he's shot.
I would say I don't know. His body certainly will not allow him to play till he's 40.
Yeah.
And his production this year may not have Utah wanting him to play till he's 40. But that's why.
What kind of statements will the statement come before the fine from the Holy War?
Well, the fine already came down for Utah.
So I don't know. Have they released a statement?
I didn't see one. I did see it's like $40,000 to the AD. I don't think I saw a statement.
That was quick.
Yeah, it was yesterday. They had it done. I mean, under 24 hours.
Wow.
Because that game didn't wrap up till like midnight or after our time.
$40K for that?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe that's what the number was.
Seems excessive.
Yeah, they don't really like they don't really like you coming after officials.
Did you what? Did you?
I watched the game. I watched a lot of games that were egregious officiating, and somebody still got fined for saying it out loud. That's kind of the deal, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like the worse the officiating is, the more the fine's going to be for you saying anything about it. That's how it seems, at least.
You'd think that there has to be some sort of.
I need some level of self-awareness to be like, "Yep, that one's on us. Sorry about that, bud."
So who do you like tonight? The Rams or your main man Hakusua?
I'm not a Miami guy.
I've been all in on the Rams.
You're going the other way,
so I'm taking the Dolphins tonight.
Give me the Rams minus the 2.5.
I'll take all 2.5 of those.
All 2.5 of those?
Yep. and go Fins.
That's the show for today. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We will be back tomorrow for Hurrdat Sports Radio.
See you. Have a good day. Love you.